Hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing.
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. Today I have a spring crafting marathon with 15 of the spring DIYs that I've made so far this year on my channel in 2025. We're going to have fairy garden DIYs, we're going to have bee DIYs, and we're going to have just general spring DIYs. So let's get started with the first DIYs, which are fairy garden DIYs. So fun. For the first one, I'm going to use this metal tray. I actually got this at the Target Dollar Spot for $5. Just galvanized metal regular tray. There's so many different things you can use for a fairy garden, but I love ones on trays because you can have them indoor, outdoor. Even if they're outdoor, they're easy to move around if you have to mow or something like that. So the first thing I do is just fill it up with some potting soil, just a little bit here in the bottom. And then I'm going to start filling it with items. This is the house we're going to use. It's one of the new houses from the Dollar Tree that has the moss already on the roof. It's bright and colorful, and that is what I was going for this little fairy garden. They also have these great fairy garden items this year that are really a lot larger than ones that I've seen there in the past, like the little rivers like this and the bridges, and even the gnomes as well. I like doing the miniature, but I also like doing the larger version of the fairy gardens like this. I'm just going to put two of those together to make a little river in this fairy garden. And then we can even do like one of the little stone bridges here to go over it. And that will hide the gap between the two. I can even angle it a little bit so it goes a little bit more off the tray. And then I want the little house like right over here. Now, I went to my Dollar Tree and they didn't have any potting soil, but they usually do get it in stock. I usually try to buy it there, at least for fairy gardens. Now for the little gnomes, I found these great little gnomes. This one's riding a snail. It's so cute. It says happy. So I love him. I'm going to put him right here in front. And then they also have like the little individual gnomes like this that are a little bit bigger. I think I'll go with the red one just because I was going for bright and colorful in this fairy garden. Now, I didn't poke any holes in the bottom of this fairy garden. I'm going to use it on the tray next to my front door, so it won't get any like rain or anything there. So I don't think it's going to need drainage. And then for some items to decorate it, they have these little mushrooms that come in the packages as well. I have two of them, and I also have like one of their little garden fences. They have such a great selection of fairy garden stuff at my stores. I was so excited to start making some fairy garden DIYs. So kind of arranging it so you can see both of the gnomes from the front. And then I also want to do like some little stepping stones. I'm just going to use the Dollar Tree wood stems for this. They're a little taller than I'd like, but I'm going to bury them down into the potting soil. And then I'm going to be adding the grass and all the different stuff on top, so they won't be too tall and they'll kind of just go to the bottom of the tray. For the grass itself, I like to use the Dollar Tree reindeer moss. I have been making so many crafts with this stuff lately. I just absolutely love crafting with it. And I think it gives you that bright green look of a yard, but it's also kind of crazy looking, like a forest that you would think it would be here in this little fairy garden. I guess this is more of a gnome garden, huh? We are going to have some fairy gardens later on, though. And so I just kind of go around everything I've already placed. I like putting the items down in the potting soil so they're less likely to fall over, but I want to cover up most of the potting soil down there and cover it up with this, working my way around the little river over here as well. And I kind of like that. It looks like I have a couple different colors of green on that reindeer moss. I like the variety. Now we're going to decorate it with some little garden pests. I have some of these little wooden ladybug stickers from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to put one on the sign. We can scatter some around in the moss as well. Super cute, and they're bright red, so that's very colorful. I also have some of these little wooden bees. I actually bought these on Amazon because I couldn't find any at Dollar Tree, and I used all of mine up that I had at Dollar Tree, but they're pretty much the same thing. They're a little smaller, they're little bees, and I'm going to put some, just scatter those around like I did the ladybug. I did one like kind of climbing on the little toadstool there in front. And of course, we need some flowers because I want it to look fun for spring. So I try to get some of the smallest flowers they have at Dollar Tree. I don't want to do like pinks and purples on this one. I was going for a bright color. So we're going to do yellow flowers. I think that will look nice. And then maybe some of the white ones here too. Not too much. I don't want it to overpower all of the other fun items that the gnomes have going on here in their little garden. One more little bumblebee on top of the roof there. It had a little bit of a bald spot there on the moss covered roof. And one more flower, and I think this one is ready to go. So much fun to craft fairy gardens. If you have some kids around, it would be really fun to get them involved. They'll come up with lots of great ideas. And I like to kind of have a theme when I go into a fairy garden like this. The theme for this one was gnomes, and I wanted it to be bright and colorful for spring. And I think we accomplished all of those goals. Isn't that so cute? I love the little gnome there on the snail. For this DIY, I'm going to use a Dollar Tree pot. I picked up the one that kind of looks like a wooden bucket. And what I want to do is make this into like a big fairy garden that I can put in my landscaping outside. So, the local fairies can use it and all. I thought it would be fun to try to do that because the fairy garden section also has like the doors and like the windows now. So I thought I could take the door and the window set, add it to the pot. The fact that it looks like a wooden barrel, I think kind of goes with the look of a fairy house, a fairy garden house. And so let's see what we can do with these. These are made out of ceramic material, and I want to glue them to that little pot. The pot itself is plastic. So I was thinking I'm probably going to need a stronger glue than I normally use. So I'm using some Gorilla Glue. And I'm going to combine that with hot glue so that I can get it on there quickly, but it's going to glue on stronger because I'm going to put this outside in my landscaping, so I want it to be able to hold up, right? So I'm going to have my door like that, flush with the bottom of it when it's upside down, just like that. And it's flat on the back, and of course the surface is rounded, but it's a pretty good area to contact. The most contact is down here on the bottom, so that's where I'm going to put the Gorilla Glue, and then I put hot glue up here on the top to glue it into place at least temporarily. And there is a little bit of gap around the arch of the door there, as you see, and I'll show you how I go about filling that up. It's also a fun way to decorate this giant fairy house. And I'm going to do the same thing on the windows. I'm going to do half of it with the Gorilla Glue and half of it with the Gorilla Glue hot glue. For the windows, I decided to offset them a little bit. This one I did almost all the way over on the side of the barrel, and this one I'm going to do a little closer to the front door just because I kind of like the asymmetrical look, especially because I want to do something kind of asymmetrical to decorate this fairy garden house. So this is what it looks like so far. We've got the door, we've got the two windows. The top of it is the bottom of that pot, so it has all those holes in it and everything. I thought the easiest way to make a roof would be to do a stone roof. So I'm going to use some of those little stones from the Dollar Tree and cover the roof. It's going to cover all of the holes and all this area up here, and it's going to give it that great like fairy garden house look. I just start with hot glue. I do go in and reinforce it with some stronger glue because this is probably not going to hold up outside here in Florida. But I did get a good start with the hot glue, and it's definitely easier because it dries quicker. But I just go around the edges with these, and I'm just trying to lay them down, trying to find the flat surface so I can make as much contact as I can with the pot there to glue those down. Another option to cover the roof, you could use the reindeer moss to cover the roof, but I have another idea for that on this project, so I thought stones on the roof would be perfect. So I just worked my way all the way around, and then for the inside, I just put like half of it with hot glue down, put the pebbles down inside, and then did the same thing here on the other side. Now, I do want to make sure everything is secure, and I kind of want to build it up a little bit. Not necessarily a second layer of pebbles, but every knot here and there, I'm just going to make it a little bit taller, make it look a little bit more random. And I want to try to cover up a lot of those gaps where you could see like the plastic behind it and stuff like that. So I just go around with some more and just add some pebbles to it until I am happy with it. I love the colors of these stones. I think they're really pretty, and they're totally going to go with the aesthetic look that I was going for this little fairy garden house. And then I went in with the Gorilla Glue and I tried to glue these on a little bit better. They're on the top, so that's going to help a little bit. It's not like they're trying to defy gravity like the doors and the windows. And then I'm going to go in here and fill up the gaps. Any gaps that you can see between the rocks. I don't want to be able to see any of the plastic pot. I'm just using some of that brown floral moss and some hot glue and just going in and filling those in. It gives it a fun little forest quality, and it also serves the purpose by filling in all of those gaps between the rocks. That way I don't have to keep building with them. I think that's enough to cover the top of it. And it gives it a cool stone roof look. And I did the brown floral moss just to kind of mix it up a little bit, but you could use whatever you have. I wanted this to be like lots of browns and greens on this little house. Now to cover the gap around the door, it's already got like a mossy look there on top. So I'm going to continue that on with the reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. So that's going to fill in that gap perfectly, make it look like it's intentional and that it's not sticking out like that. And I go all the way around the arch of the door, just attaching that with hot glue. You could always use some stronger glue for that if you wanted to, but hot glue and something really light like this I think should work well. Then I'm going to continue it on, at least on one side. So this is the side that I made the window a little closer. And I'm going to continue that reindeer moss on, making it look like moss has grown, but like only on this side of the house. And I want it to kind of be like evenly kind of arched over that window, going all the way up to the roof and then kind of coming down the other side of the window. It's not super curved like I want it, so I'm going to add a little bit more here to finish off the look I was going for. And I think this gave it a really cool vibe. And this is so fun. I'm going to set this out in my landscaping. I think it looks so cute. I'm going to use some of these like little wood ornament slices from the Dollar Tree. I think these are going to be perfect stepping stones. I can put these like in my mulch as little stepping stones, like leading out to it, kind of like this. And I think that will be so fun. Isn't this so cute? Our little fairy garden house made out of a Dollar Tree pot and a couple items that I found there from the Dollar Tree. I love it. I think it's really whimsical and fun. And I think it would go with about any decor. It would look good in your garden, your landscaping, even like out by a tree or something like that. The little ones would absolutely love it. I'm not a little one and I think they're so cool. I'd never really made a fairy garden until I started this channel, but I love them now. For this one, I'm going to make like a little miniature fairy garden, and this one's going to have an Easter theme. I'm going to start off with one of these little wood trays from the Dollar Tree. I think these are really fun. I don't think I've ever used one before. They have a couple different styles of these little trays from the Dollar Tree now. They have like the edges that are different patterns. I'm just going to give mine a quick stain with some antique wax by Waverly on the outside of the little box. And wipe off the excess with a baby wipe, giving me like a medium stain just so it's a little bit more finished. I wanted to do like a little Easter theme on this one. And so I'm going to combine some fairy garden items from the Dollar Tree, but also some little Easter items that I found. I want to do like some little Easter bunnies in there, some little Easter eggs, and even some carrots. Now, they do have little carrot erasers similar to the little bunnies that you see there. And they also have little mini carrots from the Dollar Tree that you can use. But I'm going to actually use some fairy garden carrots that I found. So I am just staining the inside. And I did have to use my finger sander just because it was cut well, but it was a little splintery along the edges. Now, instead of moss on this one, I thought it would be fun to use some of the Easter grass from Dollar Tree. This is from the Dollar Tree Plus. It's like $5 a roll. I love it for crafting. I'm just going to cut out a square of it big enough to fit in the inside of this little box. Now, one thing about this is when you cut it, you can see like the little black mat that the grass is attached to. So I always like to go around and try to trim that off as much as possible if I can. And then I'm just going to attach the grass to the bottom with a little bit of hot glue. So this is kind of a smaller size fairy garden, but I love the fact that it has a theme. The corners weren't super rounded, so I just put some hot glue down, and as you can see, it likes to shed when you cut it, and just use the excess grass to fill in my corners. Now these are the fairy garden items I found to use for it. This one with the little gate also has the carrots, and then I got a little miniature bench. And this is like the smaller scale fairy garden stuff from the Dollar Tree, I would say, compared to some of the newer big stuff. I'm just going to attach the little spring bench here to the back, hot gluing it to the grass. And then I also have like one of their little welcome signs for the fairy garden, also kind of on the smaller scale for since this is going to be such a small little tray. This is the Easter bunnies I picked out. They're the little erasers from Dollar Tree. I thought they would be perfect miniatures. Sometimes these can be a little difficult to hot glue, but since I'm adding them to the grass, I think it's going to work. And then these are the little carrots that I was talking about that were part of the fairy garden. So I thought these would be perfect for the little bunnies. I'm going to use this little fairy garden indoors. And so I'm just kind of hot gluing everything down. And of course, it doesn't need to be able to drain or anything like that, but you could always modify it as needed. I thought 2 little Easter bunnies would be plenty. I was trying to decide if he should stand on the bench, but I think he should stand in the grass. So I'm going to put one back here, one a little closer to the carrots. And this was a fun idea. We're also going to do a little one with a St. Patrick's Day theme. I thought it would be fun to do a couple spring themes on some of these tier trays today. For the flowers, I'm going to use some of the pink and yellow flowers from the Dollar Tree, some of the small ones here. Just cutting off individual flowers, leaving a little bit of a stem on them and attaching them with hot glue. We can put some flowers in the corner. I don't want to overpower it too much because I do want to set it up to make it look like an Easter egg hunt. To do that, I'm going to use just some jelly beans that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. Now, mine's going to be indoors, so I think it'll be fine to have jelly beans in this. I'm not going to glue them down, so I can remove them after Easter's over. If you wanted a more outdoor version, they also have those little miniature wooden eggs with the Easter section at Dollar Tree. You could always paint some of those. But I'm going to scatter them into the grass like that, like there is an Easter egg hunt. A very whimsical little Easter fairy garden. I think it's so fun. And I took this picture like 4 times. It would not focus on that bunny on the back. I don't know why, but you get the idea. Really cute little Easter theme for this fairy garden, and I love it. It's pretty small too. You can put this just about anywhere. I have the perfect place, I think, near my front door to display this one. Now, since we did an Easter theme, I wanted to try to do an easy St. Patrick's Day theme as well. These are the little shamrock trays from the Dollar Tree this year. They're plastic bowls, and I thought they'd make a cute little fairy garden. You can put some holes in the bottom if you are going to need drainage on yours. I'm going to sit this one near my front door, so I don't think I'm going to need drainage on it. I just put a little potting soil in the bottom. This is the house I chose for this one. It's got the green mossy roof. It's one of the newer fairy garden houses this year, and I'm going to put that right in the middle. It takes up a lot of space, but I still have enough room here in the clover to fill this up and to decorate it. For the grass, I'm using the reindeer moss, and I'm just going to fill up each one of those leaves of the clover. And for the greenery, I'm going to use the actual clover plants that they have from the Dollar Tree. I thought that would be fun. Now, this is kind of a smaller scale, so the stepping stones can be a little smaller. I'm just using those Dollar Tree stones and trying to find some of the flatter ones to do like 3 of them as like stepping stones as a pathway to the front door of this little fairy garden house. And just enough of the reindeer moss to kind of cover everything. Kind of looks cool because, of course, the clover should be green anyway. And these clovers are kind of big for this miniature scale fairy garden, but that's okay. I'm just going to use one in each one of the petals here for a little bit of greenery to add to that St. Patrick's Day vibe. I thought a rainbow would be really fun, and I found a rainbow sticker from the Dollar Tree, and I was trying to decide how I could use this. It's kind of a metallic sticker, so what I decided to do was cut it a little bit and peel the plastic backing off of it that's sticky, and that's just going to leave me with like a little thin metal rainbow that I thought would be perfect for this. And I want to kind of make it look like the end of the rainbow is the little fairy garden house. So I was trying to decide how to do it. I think I can attach it right here. And then from the front, it'll look like the rainbow like ends at the house. So I just attached it to the side of the bowl with a little bit of hot glue. Gotta have a rainbow here with the St. Patrick's Day theme. And then I also wanted some gold. So I'm going to use some of these gold coins. These are from the St. Patrick's Day confetti. They come in this multi-pack like this, and I've used these for a previous DIY. I think they're so cool. I'm going to use some of the bigger ones and some of the little ones and just scatter the gold coins all around. It's really going to give you that St. Patrick's Day vibe. And you wouldn't have to use, like a shaped container like this. You could take any fairy garden like this and dress it up for the holiday. And I think it's just a really fun idea, and it was so easy to put together. So this is our St. Patrick's Day themed little fairy garden. I love it. It's so much fun. It's so whimsical. And the fact that it's in like a little shamrock like that, I think is the perfect use for that bowl. I had picked up that bowl from the Dollar Tree this year, and I was trying to decide, what am I going to make with this? Really fun. Now for this DIY, I picked up one of these new spring trays. This is like a letter tray. It's like letter size. And I think it's perfect because it's got this beautiful like floral pattern on it. It's a short tray. It's large. You can do a really big scene. And I'm actually going to use this out in my landscaping. So the first thing I do is just use a nail, and I'm just going to poke holes all over. It does have holes on the side, but I didn't know if that'd be enough drainage for Florida rain. And I wanted to make sure that the water could get out and not sit in this little fairy garden. And I am going to start filling this up. This one's going to be a traditional fairy garden. So I want it to have like a good covering of potting soil here on the bottom, but not too thick. It does have those little handle openings on the side. I want to try to make sure things aren't coming out of those, and I don't really want to cover those up with anything because I want to just leave the plastic tray. And again, these are great to do on a tray because you can move them around in your landscaping. You can move them from yard to yard or for whatever you're doing in your yard. And it might not be warm enough to put these out where you live, so you could start them inside and then take them outside when spring decides to hit. This is the house I chose for this one. I think it's really sweet. It's got some pink flowers growing up the side of it. And I want this one to be very pretty pink and polished for the fairies. And we're going to add fairies to this one. So I put that over to the side. This is one of the trees from the Dollar Tree. Now it is a tree house, and I want it to be more of a tree. So let me show you how I go about converting that. I don't mind it having the little bracket fungi and the face on there. I think that's cute. But I'm going to cover the tree house itself with some reindeer moss, and I kind of wanted to have that feel all over. I was kind of inspired by some of the newer pieces that are covered in moss, and so I'm going to try to do my own here with the reindeer moss and keep going because I don't want some of it to be ceramic and some of it to be covered with a reindeer moss. I want the entire thing. And so I don't want it to be super thick. Once you get it on there, you can always tear off some of it if it's too thick, so you have a little bit more reindeer moss to work with. And just kind of work one section at a time. We're going to make this really cute tree here for the backyard of this little fairy garden. It took more reindeer moss than I thought it would to cover that, but I think that looks pretty good and pretty covered. Maybe one or two more areas that have a little areas to be patched. And I wanted to make sure you couldn't see any little bald spots. And then I'm going to place that down into the potting soil as well. Again, I want to bury these a little bit in the potting soil. That will help keep them from tipping over when I get this all put together. And then I'm going to use some of these larger fairy garden pieces this year. I wanted to do like a water display on this one, a little bit bigger. And then I wanted to do a sidewalk. So this is a little stone pathway that came in one of those packages that I thought would be perfect to go to the little fairy garden house. And then I decided I wanted a bridge over water. And I was trying to decide whether I wanted to do that in the backyard, but it seemed like it might be a little tight back here, or if I should do it here in the front where it's nice and visible, and I decided to do that. Then for the fairies to sit on, I'm going to have one sit on the bridge, but I wanted the other one to sit on a stump. So I'm going to use one of these wood stems from the Dollar Tree, and kind of put that one down here as well. I ended up gluing that down so it's a little bit sturdier for my little fairy to sit on in the backyard. For the water, I'm going to use some of the little blue pebbles from the Dollar Tree. This makes great water for a little fairy garden because anytime you use like rocks or pebbles, it's going to hold up really well, and they're bright blue like water. So I think that's going to be perfect, and I can put it right there where I want it to go underneath that little bridge. Now it's time for some grass here on this fairy garden. I'm going to use reindeer moss. I'm going to mix it together with some of the green floral moss too to kind of provide a couple different colors, but most of it's going to be the reindeer moss. I find that one works the best. So I just go in the front yard, the backyard, and then I always like to kind of have different zones when I have a bigger tier tray like this. So I want in one area to be kind of rocky. So I'm going to do the rocky area over here on the other side of the tree. Just so we have all different kinds of areas in this yard. I want a lot of landscaping. This is the green floral moss. As you can see, it doesn't really stick together like the reindeer moss does, but I like the fact that it provides a little bit more of a foresty green color. And then I'm going to use some of the brown floral moss from the Dollar Tree too. I'm going to use that to make a little path that goes to the backyard from the bridge that's made out of something different than like the little sidewalk to the house. And I thought that that would be a nice change to change up the color of the moss to make a little path to kind of make it look like a little dirt pathway. And then I'm going to continue on with the yard and the reindeer moss until I have all of it covered, just working over here by the rocks, the trees, and the water display. These are so fun to do. You can really get creative. Hopefully you're getting lots of fun ideas today for your fairy garden. I'm even going to have some more creative fairy gardens that you can like even hang on the wall today, so stay tuned. For the sign, I found this great little fairy garden sign. This is one of the newer, bigger items this year. I thought it was really cute, and so it's bright and perfect for the fairies, so I'm going to put that right in front. And now it's time for some greenery and some flowers. This is just some of the Dollar Tree greenery. This is some of the newer greenery that I got there today. Kind of looks like a fern plant. I'm going to use those, just pulling them off and using their stems. Just gives you a little bit of height, a little bit of greenery, really easy, and just working that down into the potting soil. And then, of course, we have to have flowers for our little fairies. So, again, I picked out some small flowers from the Dollar Tree. They have like these little white ones. I'm going to kind of scatter those around. I just cut the stem off about like maybe an inch so that there is enough room to put it down into the potting soil. And then I'm going to put some soft pink flowers as well. And these are a little bit larger, but maybe some yellow ones too. I want it to be really beautiful for the little fairies. And it's so fun. You could even use this for a centerpiece for your table. Really fun. For mushrooms, I picked up these little pink and purple mushrooms from the Easter section at Dollar Tree. These are great for fairy gardens. They come on wire. I'm just going to cut them off, again, leaving a little stem on there that I can kind of bend and work down into the potting soil so they won't fall over. And I'm going to use a combination of pink and purple because those remind me of little fairy colors, and scatter those around the forest as well. As you can see, it's getting lots of different colors and textures, and I absolutely love how this fairy garden turned out. Now, I noticed that sign wanted to fall over a little bit, so to prevent that from falling over, I'm going to use some of the pebbles around it to help it stand up better. And then maybe another piece of greenery back here. And I think it's ready for the little fairies. These are the fairies I got this year. They're the larger ones. One of them has her leg up a little bit. So I think that that one would be really cute sitting on the bridge. Like she's touching the water with one of her feet like that. But she's not going to stay on there. So I use a little hot glue. You could always use some stronger glue. I might have to glue her back on. We'll see. And then I'm going to hot glue this to the little wood stem. I also glue that down for a little to make it sturdier so she doesn't fall off every time the wind blows. But here it is, our little fairy garden. Very traditional. It's actually pretty large. Let me show you all of the fun details. Like even like the fairy garden sign like that has the cute little birds on there that will look really fun for spring. But I think this one turned out so cute. I had so much fun putting this together for you today. Isn't that so cute? And I think the color of that tray and the little flower cutouts there on the side make it really great. If you're enjoying today's video so far, be sure to hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, I would really appreciate it. Up next, we're going to do bee DIYs. These are so fun for spring or summer. I always love crafting new ones every year. For the first one, we're going to be doing a honey pot lantern. Now, a note on this DIY, you're probably going to want to bake your Mod Podge on because I did have some issues with the Mod Podge and paint slipping off the glass. So keep that in mind. You might want to bake this one if you DIY this one. For the jar, I'm just using one of these square glass containers. I thought this would work well. I know square is not necessarily something you would think of for a jar, but I think it's going to make it a little bit easier to decorate it and stuff like that because it won't be completely round. And I'm just going to give it a quick cleaning to make sure the inside and the outside are both clean. I want to dye it so that you'll be able to see light through it, but I want it to look like it has honey inside the jar. To do that, I'm just using some Mod Podge here in a cup, and I'm going to just start adding some food coloring. I have some food coloring that I picked up at the Dollar Tree that I just use for crafting. It's very expired, but hey, it still works. And I'm just going to start adding yellow to the Mod Podge. I wasn't really getting where I wanted to with the yellow. It wasn't quite that golden honey color. So I do go in and add a little bit of red as well to kind of get more of a golden feel. But I don't want to add very much of that because a little goes a long way. So a couple drops of red. And as you see, you'll get like an orange color. I don't really necessarily want it to be orange. I do want it to be golden. So I'm going to add more yellow. I do want it to be thick, so I'm not going to water this down at all because I want it to look like gloppy honey on the inside of the jar. I'm not going to be dripping any honey or anything on the outside of the jar, so I kind of want to get that look of the honey by the inside. So I want it to be nice and thick. So I pour what I have here in the bottom of this jar. The jar is pretty large. I'm just going to start working it around by spinning it around so it will kind of go up the sides. I want to fill up the entire jar with our faux honey. And again, I made it really thick on purpose to get that gloppy texture. So it was a little bit of a challenge to get it to go all the way down to the rim. But I was able to do that. Just put down a paper towel because it definitely gets messy for this part. I was trying to make sure that I had everything covered. And I want to let it dry, but I also want it to kind of come back down inside the jar to make it look like a honey jar that has been used was what I was going for, since I'm not going to do any like drips of honey on the outside. If you wanted to do drips of honey on the outside, you could use some like yellow tinted hot glue for that, but I didn't have any in my stash, so we're going to make it work with just Mod Podge and a little bit of food coloring. I'm going to start its drying process like that, and then for the top of the lid, I'm going to use one of the Dollar Tree push lights. That way I can like unscrew the lid, push the light to turn it on, and I won't actually have anything in the jar, but it's going to light up the jar. For the lid, I just take it and I take some of the Dollar Tree Bee honeycomb fabric, and I'm going to cut a circle of fabric like you would see on the top of a jar if you've been canning, and I'm just going to cut out a circle. I thought I'd probably have a better chance of getting a good circle to fold the fabric in fourths to cut that out. And they have like three, I think, different varieties of the honeycomb fabric. I always pick it up every year at Dollar Tree whenever I see it because it can be really fun for little projects like this. I want it to go around the round lid like this, and I can attach that with glue and a little twine to make it look cute, but nothing that's going to interfere with me taking the lid on and off to be able to turn the light on and off. I want to use this for my kitchen. I always like to have like a little light up decorative item on my kitchen that's seasonal. I think it's really cute. And if you want to go into the kitchen and the light's not on, it looks really good on the counter. For the twine, I probably should have left this step to last because depending on how you screw the lid on is where you're going to have it tied off. I end up moving it a little bit, but for now, I just put it on with a couple dots of hot glue, and I tie that around the outside edges of it to give that like ruffled look to it, and just tie it off with a simple knot, leaving a couple little strings on there. Nothing crazy. We are going to decorate the front of the honey jar lantern too, and I love how this project turned out. It was so much fun. This does have double-sided tape on the back of it, so I'm just going to peel and stick. As you can see, it fits just inside the lid with enough room to be able to screw it on, so that is helpful. Now this has lots of paint seeping out of it still, and it's super wet. I'm going to start the drying process, but I'm going to let it dry on its own. If I were to leave it upside down, I would get a very even coating of the tinted Mod Podge all over the sides. But again, I want it to look gloppy and I want it to like go down the sides of it a little bit. So I'm not going to wait for it to dry. I'm going to go ahead and start decorating this. I just use a black paint pen and I'm just going to simply spell out the word honey there on the front. Nothing crazy. And then I thought we could decorate it with some flowers and bees on the front. Those little wooden beads I picked up on Amazon the other day because I wasn't able to find any at Dollar Tree this year. And I have them linked in my Amazon shop as well. For the flowers, I wanted small white and yellow flowers, but I didn't have anything small enough. So I'm going to use these little white paper flower stickers from the Dollar Tree. And just using a paint pen, making that little pearl in the middle yellow, I thought it would give me that same effect. It's just kind of difficult not to get it on the flower itself. I was able to on these two. And they have double-sided tape on the back, so I'm just going to use that to stick that on there. The little bees have double-sided tape as well. At first, I added them like this. I did notice that a lot of them aren't going to stay with the double-sided tape on that glass jar, so I did go back and add some hot glue to them, at least the ones that were like directly on the glass like that, but I think 5 would look good here on the front of our honey jar. And as you can see, it's thick and gloppy in there, which is exactly what I wanted. I think it's going to give it a cool effect when I light it up. So I just popped the lid on. After turning it on, turn it on there, and this is how it turned out. Isn't that so cute? Let me give you a closer look. This is what it looks like during the day. So it looks like it's pretty full of honey during the day. It's kind of an illusion though, because the way that the gloppy Mod Podge inside dried, it makes it look like it's a honey jar that has been used a lot. So I will show you what it looks like lit up as well. Here it is, our little honey jar lantern. I think it turned out really cute. I love the gloppy honey effect by using that thick Mod Podge inside. And of course the cute little bees on there finish it off. This was such an easy DIY to make. I just had a vision of this in my head. I'm like, I bet I could make that work. I would really like to have like a little light up honey jar to go with my bee theme for spring. For this DIY, I'm going to use one of these You Are the Bee's Knee salad plates from the Dollar Tree and one of the glass candle holders. What I want to do is make a little dish to go on my console table right inside my front door, somewhere where I can kind of toss my keys this spring. I always like to have a tray or a bowl or something there. And I think this will work well. I chose this candle holder because it's not very tall. I don't want it to fall over or anything like that, being that people are going to be tossing their keys in and out of it. And so I think this will be the right size. I thought we could decorate it though with some Dollar Tree rope. And so I just start here at the top of it, making sure I kind of go almost flush, but leaving a little bit of the glass exposed. You're not going to be able to see that underneath the table. And this has kind of an interesting shape. It goes in and out, but I think it will work. I'm just taking some of the thinner brown rope from the Dollar Tree and attaching it with hot glue as I go because I want to make sure that it stays close all the way around the different like elevations on this one. I just had a scrap piece of rope. It wasn't quite long enough, but that's okay. We can always start and restop this pretty easily. Just make sure you kind of glue down any light loose fibers that you have to make it look a little bit better. I was just going to do this with rope, but then I decided to take it up a notch and kind of make it look like a little mini Bee Skep underneath. I thought that would be fun. Here at the bottom, I kind of cut it a little bit of an angle so I'll get more of a flat bottom. And then the first thing I'm going to do is just burn the fuzzies off the Dollar Tree rope here to get us started. The little plate itself is perfect. It's so cute. And I really wanted to find something I could DIY with it. So I was really happy with how this project turned out. I also want to make sure I don't have any hot glue on there. I try to use my heat gun for that. And then I'm just going to use a black paint pen. We're just going to paint a little black circle on here for an opening. Nothing crazy. And just painting the rope itself. Pretty easy to do. And then we're gonna cover it with a few bees as well. So that is that really cute little plate. I love it. I love the saying on there too. It's a really cute saying to greet people when they come in and toss their keys in here. I'm just using hot glue on the rope and peeling the double-sided tape off the back of those little wooden bees from Amazon and attaching them all over. I think 3 is going to be enough because it's not super big. And now it's just a matter of attaching. Since I'm doing ceramic to glass, I want to use a stronger glue. I'm going to use some of this Gorilla Glue and just let it have some time to set up so it'll be a little bit stronger than hot glue would. And I just go around the rim, making sure to center that on the plate just like that. And then I'm just going to have to set this aside so it will dry. This is how it turned out, my little tray. I have a whole bunch of my bee DIYs displayed near my front door, and I think this is going to be the perfect final touch. I can put it on the console right next to the door, and we can just toss our keys in there. Nothing really heavy or anything like that. And I think it's nice and short enough to work well for this purpose, but I also think it's really cute. For this DIY, I'm using one of the giant Easter eggs from the Dollar Tree. Plus, this is $5, so it's a really big Easter egg. So big, it was kind of hard to show on my workstation actually crafting it. I'm going to use the top of it to make a giant bee skep or beehive. I have made like a lot of smaller versions of this, but I have never made a large one. And I've seen some in some really nice home decor. They have some really big ones that you can even hang from the ceiling if you want for your project. I'm going to make one that goes on my counter. So I think it's going to be really cute, but it's going to require a lot of rope and a lot of hot glue. As you can see, I'm using the thicker rope. This is the 8-foot rope from Dollar Tree. And I had 6 packages of it there. It's not enough, spoiler. I'll kind of show you how much I end up using, but it was close. I'm thinking probably 8 packages would be enough. And I just start in the middle, hot gluing that on and spiraling it. It is a blue color, so I do want to try to squeeze the rope together a little bit as I'm hot gluing it to the egg to make sure that I don't have any gaps. I don't want you to be able to see any of that blue color through. And you can see about how far one package made it. It is a huge egg, so it's going to make just a giant bee skep. I absolutely love how it turned out, though. It was so much fun. This did take me a while. I'm trying to think. I think it took me about an hour and a half to make this, but thanks to the power of editing, it's only going to take us a few minutes. So 2 packages, you still feel like you're not getting super far with this. It is a little bit easier using the thicker rope though, but it is of course shorter. So lots of starting and stopping. And I just try to make sure that I hot glue my ends together, make sure they're not frayed at all. And I am removing the tape from, of course, both ends of the rope when I go to begin gluing this on. And the reason why I'm hot gluing it everywhere, even when I'm wrapping it, is because I want to keep it in place again, and I don't want to see the blue through the different cracks. I also want this to be really heavy duty and to hold up where I could display this outside if I wanted to, like on a table on my porch, or I think I might actually just use mine in my entryway. It is so cute. We're going to decorate it too, kind of decorate it like you would a wreath because it's like such a big display piece. But for now, I'm still wrapping it in rope. This is how far I have. When they say a giant egg, they mean it. Now you could do this on a smaller scale. I'm sure that they have a little bit smaller versions of these eggs for $1.25. I'm not sure if they have like a $3 version of this one. But I'm going to save the bottom of the egg to use for something else. It's a nice bowl shape, so I think that will be good for crafting something else. But this definitely provided me a very firm base and the perfect shape. I know that you could use like a flower pot for this, but I think that that egg shape just gives you the perfect bee skep. Now, as you can see, I am on my last package of rope. I'm going to have to order another case of this one. I just ordered a case of the thinner brown rope from Dollar Tree to free ship to my store. They do have both kinds in stock for that. And you can get that. I do have a Dollar Tree link in the description of my video as well. It's a great way to make sure that you have enough of the same kind of rope in stock, especially if you're going to do a larger project. So I counted my package. It was 6 packages, and I still have some room to go. Luckily, I had lots of scrap pieces of the same size, but again, they're random and they're shorter. So I'm not exactly sure. I'm estimating probably about 8 packages. I would have counted all of them if I would have had enough to start and stop, but definitely gonna have to restock the rope. I love using rope for Dollar Tree crafting, but especially for bee DIYs, it can be so much fun. And as you can see, we are getting closer. So I'm just gonna finish wrapping this with rope, going all the way to the bottom, and then maybe 1 row around. Make sure that I cover all the plastic, but I want it to be nice and sturdy, so I don't want a lot of freestanding rope there at the bottom of this Bee Skep. Now, at the end, I try to cut it a little bit at an angle to make it completely blend in. But I think it turned out really cute. It was a really fun project. And when I thought I was making a really big, giant bee skep, I don't know if I realized exactly how big it would be. It is really large, but I love it. It's going to be a great piece that will fill up a table or countertop. And again, if you wanted to do the bottom on yours, you could add a plate or something flat on the bottom, some cardboard cut out, and keep going around and cover the back. And that way you could hang it up on your porch or something like that if you wanted to. Those are my inspiration pieces. That's how they were. But the first thing I do is just go all over with my lighter, burning off the fuzzies. It was a really big project, so I had a lot of rope. And just make sure that I kind of fill in any of the gaps with a little bit of hot glue to make sure they're laying flat. And you can cut off some of the excess stringing on it as well. Then to decorate it, I'm going to use some of the thinner brown rope here to do a little circle on the front to go around the opening to the bee skep. It's going to add a little bit more texture. And I think it's the right scale for the little toy bees from the Dollar Tree, which we're going to use to decorate this. And then I used some of the wider rope that I used for the bee skep itself. And I just cut out a handle here for the top. Since mine's going to be a desktop, it doesn't have to be super strong. I'm just going to attach mine after the fact. I just glue the ends together to make sure they don't fray and loop it like this, and then I'm going to attach it with hot glue. Now, if you were going to hang yours, I would maybe start at the bottom, work my rope all the way up to the top, and when you got to the top, I would go ahead and make the loop with the same piece that's attached to the rest of the rope. That's attached to the egg, if that makes sense, to make it a little bit stronger. I also cut a small piece of that thinner rope to go around just to have a little bit more rope to glue that to reinforce it, to make it a little bit stronger there at the top. And I think that looks pretty good. Now for this part, I just need a little circle here. I'm going to kind of map out where I want it to be and how big it needs to be with a black paint pen here by just kind of holding the rope on there and then sketching out a rough circle. It doesn't have to be perfect at all because you're going to have that rope go around and border it. And I like to actually use a brush and some black paint when I am working with a project like this where I really need to get into the fibers of that rope. And I just paint that on there, and it's going to give me really good coverage too for the opening of the bee skep. I think that looks pretty good. I give it a quick dry so it doesn't get on the rope that we're about to attach to it. And then I just add it here. I'm going to work my way around starting at the bottom and just make a little circle here to border it. I think it's just going to make it look a little bit cuter, add another texture to the front of this. And we're going to decorate this with greenery, bows, bees. I love how this turned out. For the bees, I'm using 2 of the Dollar Tree bees. These are so cute. They have a great texture. They're just very yellow. So I always like to paint mine if I'm going to use mine for home decor. The wings are perfect, so I just go ahead and pop those off. And I like the yellow and the black stripes on there, so I'm going to save that just by using some painter's tape and taping off that part of the bee. And then I'm going to paint the rest of it black. I just think they look better like that. And they're not necessarily black on their top body, but definitely their legs are, usually their head. So I think that works pretty well. You can use black spray paint for this. I'm just using some black acrylic paint because I thought it would dry a little bit faster. And once I had them taped off, I'm just painting the underside first. And they have like a great texture on them. They can be really great for decor, and you really can't tell that they are actually Dollar Tree toys. I always check the toy aisle when I'm looking for something whimsical and fun like this, and the bees are definitely my favorite find. And I'm going to use two just because it's such a big bee skep. So that looks pretty good. I painted the undersides, only need one coat, and then I'm going to do the same thing here on the top, kind of making sure I get into the little holes for the wings as well. So you won't see any gold coming through. And my painter's tape covers the yellow and black stripes. For some reason, they only paint those on the back. And so I will touch that up a little bit too after I make these little guys black. So they are dry enough. I can go ahead and take off the painter's tape here. As you can see, they do look a lot different when you paint them like this. I really like the look of it. I'm just going to use my black paint pen, touch up some of the stripes, touch up here where I kind of start and stop the black. And then I can flip them over and continue that stripe on, just because I think it looks kind of weird that it stops there on the sides and it's like kind of a little bit visible. And I just go all the way down with that, trying to kind of bend the legs out, connect them on the side. Pretty easy to do. And we have some really cute bees that we can use for crafting. I think these are going to be the perfect scale since the bee skep is so big and they are pretty large themselves. I just pop the little wings back on. Takes a little bit of pressure to get them back in there. They just kind of rely on pressure, so you don't really have to glue them on or anything like that. So I just add both of those, and then we can continue decorating this giant bee skep. I think they look pretty good. I found some great black and yellow striped wired ribbon from the Dollar Tree that I think will be really cute to display on this. Because it's wired, I can do a big bow on top. But first I want to add some flowers and some greenery. I think these yellow flowers will be perfect. And I'm going to use a little bit of this. Is it maybe eucalyptus? I think it's eucalyptus. It just says greenery on there. And it's a bright green color. I think it'll be perfect for spring. I have like a partial piece that had 4 little branches on there. And they are wired, so I did kind of wire my first 2 together. It was a little difficult to do that. I wanted to attach it and I wanted it to be sturdy. I didn't want to just use hot glue for the greenery. So I have some wire. This is the wire from the hardware section at the Dollar Tree. It can be any kind of wire you have. This is nice and thin, so I thought this would work well. And I'm working at an angle a little bit, having the greenery kind of go from one side to the other. And I just wire those 4 pieces on here, just making sure I get them included. And having that handle there was a great thing to be able to wire around to make this nice and strong for a base for the greenery. And I just wrap that all the way around just like that. I also want to add a little bit of this like fern greenery that I got at the Dollar Tree just for a little bit of variety. So I cut off a couple pieces of that, leaving them pretty much intact. And I want to attach those two. So I kind of work those in the wire that we already have on there. And it's tight enough to keep those in place. And see where it's a little bit at an angle, it's going a little bit more to the back there on the one side. Now I don't want you to see all of that wire that I added, so I do tie off some twine here. And I'm just going to wrap it with some Dollar Tree twine, just in case you can see any of that behind the flowers and everything we're going to add to this. I want to make sure that you can't see all of that exposed wire, and the twine will make it blend in a little bit with the rope that we used for everything else. So I just tie that off once I get it covered, use a little hot glue to glue the end down here. And that will be the perfect little cover for that. I'm glad I did that. It's just going to make it look a little bit better. And now it's time to add the bow. This is the ribbon I'm using. It's a wide ribbon. I think it's perfect. It does have a more faint black stripe on one side, so I'm going to twist it as I go. But I have a tail. I loop 2 loops together, gathering it in the middle, twist it, make a loop, twist it. I'm twisting it here where my fingers keep it together in the middle. And I'm doing that to make sure all of my loops have the outside of the fabric on it. And I'm gonna do 3 loops on each side of my bow and leaving a second tail on this side. And I'm just using my fingers to keep everything together here in the middle. This is just a really simple way to do a big bow like this. I grab a zip tie to bring it all together, trying to make sure that I have it centered in there so my loops will all be about the same size, and then pull that tight. Now that I have that tight, I can go ahead and dovetail the ends of my tails here on the ribbon. Make sure they're about the same height, and we can puff out this bow since it's wired to make it big and full. And then I'm just going to cut off the excess zip tie there. Super easy. I am not like great at bows, but I think that that will work. And then I thought about adding a little raffia, but then I decided that this mesh ribbon from the Dollar Tree would look really cute. This is the one that's a little bit ivory color. And I'm just going to do the same bow. This one I don't have to twist. And I just do 2 loops on each side, cutting a tail. So I start with a tail, loop it twice on each side, and then I'm just going to use a zip tie in the middle of this one as well. And it's not wired or anything, but I think that this will provide a great kind of background bow for the more colorful one. It's going to give another texture that can kind of peek out like this. And again, I want it to be strong, so I don't want to just glue this on. I take some more twine, I wrap it around the handle there, and I just tie this off, making sure I leave enough twine on here to be able to tie my next bow on as well. So that looks pretty good. I like that look. Here's the bow that we made with yellow and black bee stripes. And I put that on there, tie that one off as well, right here in the middle. And you can't see the zip ties or anything that we use to make the bow because it's such a big fluffy bow. And just kind of work with it and arrange the bow until you're happy with it. I kind of worked mine a little bit towards the back as well. So it's kind of a side bow, kind of like everything else is on this. And then I want to add some of these yellow flowers from the Dollar Tree. These are daisies. I think that sunflowers would work really cute too. These are bright yellow, and I think they're going to be really pretty. I add the largest one right here in the middle and give them a quick little iron with my heat gun that helps get the wrinkles out and makes the petals lay flat. And then I use the slightly smaller ones on each side. I want to work with an odd number, so I'm going to do 3. So a smaller one here on the left as well. And I do attach those with hot glue. I have enough stuff on there that I can glue it to. And this is what it looks like so far with the bow, the greenery, the flowers. Now it's time to add the bees that we painted. I want one maybe on this side, kind of climbing up the little bee skep. I just add some hot glue to its head and to its tail. And hold that on there, making sure that that stays. You could always use a stronger glue for that, but when I'm gluing onto rope or fabric like that, hot glue seems to work pretty well for items like this. So that it's kind of hard to show you at this point because it's such a big bee skep, but I thought the other bee would look good maybe here on the other side to make it kind of random. And I attached that with hot glue too, kind of coming in from a different direction. And that is the final step in our giant bee skep. I love how this turned out. It is fabulous. Look at this thing. The giant Easter egg was definitely the secret behind this, and make sure that you have all of the same diameter rope for sure to give it that great bee skep look. And this is how mine turned out. I love decorating it with the greenery, the bows, the ribbons and stuff there at the top. Really adds a lot of fun up there. And of course, we can't forget the bees. So cute. If you see those in your toy section, be sure to pick some of those up for some bee crafting. You can kind of see, this is my haul tree, how large this is. It takes up a lot of it. This is a really easy DIY. I picked up an 8x10 frame from the Dollar Tree. It has a little bit of a wicker texture on it. I thought that would be fun for a bee theme. I don't really like the fact that it's all one color though, so I'm going to paint it a little bit to update it. And I'm just going to take the glass and everything out of the back. I'm going to show you how to do a really fun, bright spring canvas of a little honey truck. So the first thing I do is I'm just taking some ivory paint and a little sponge dauber, and I'm going to go all over, giving me kind of a base coat on the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to be using Antique Wax by Waverly to restain this. This is going to give me lots of different colors, like a faux wood grain, and I really want you to be able to see the great texture that is on this frame. I want it to almost look like the same color as the rope that I use for crafting with Bee DIYs. So once it's dry, I take some Antique Wax by Waverly, and for the first coat, I go over it like this, and then use a baby wipe to wipe off the excess. It's going to give me a little bit of a base coat. It's a little bit lighter. I do go back in with more Antique Wax by Waverly to make it a little bit darker, but this is my first coat of this. The baby wipe takes off a lot of it, as you can see, and then I use that to distress the sides of it as well on the edges. And then I go over it with a little bit more there on one side to make sure they're all even. Now, once I get that dry, I'm going to go in for my second coat. This one I want to do a lot darker. I want to make sure I get in all those grooves. And so instead of using a baby wipe, I use a paper towel to wipe off the excess. That leaves some of the darker color down in those grooves. As you can see, it's really bringing out that great pattern on this frame and making it look more high-end. And I really love this. I designed a printable for the 8x10, and I will include a link to the freebie printable down in the description of today's video so you can make your own. And it is sized 8x10, so if you print it out at 100%, it should be the perfect size for this one. Now that the frame is all stained, I want to make sure I don't touch it right away. The Antique Wax by Waverly does take a few minutes to dry on that for sure. Now, to make my canvas, I'm actually using the glass on the frame to make it. This is the design I made. It's a little honey farm truck full of honey in the back and bees everywhere. I think it's so cute and bright for spring. Just making sure I sized it perfectly and it looks good. So I printed mine out on cardstock. It just makes it so much easier to work with when you're making a little faux canvas like this. I just cut off the white edges of my cardstock and we can go ahead and start putting this together. I like using the glass as a background because I already have it, right? It's perfectly flat and I can just use Mod Podge to attach it. So I want the cardstock to go on top of the glass because I want that canvas feel of it. I don't want it to be behind glass, but if you like yours like that, you could totally just put it in the frame itself. I just put Mod Podge all over, laying it on top, using a dry paper towel to smooth it out to make sure I don't have any bubbling or air in there. And the great thing about cardstock is you don't really have to wait for it to dry before you start Mod Podging on top. You're not going to get wrinkling. So I go over it with a coat. Just using a foam brush, I do want a little bit of a brush stroke on there to give you that canvas feel. And I go all over the front of it and give it a quick dry. I do want that great texture and I want it to be sealed really well. So I do go in with a second coat of Mod Podge doing the same thing. I've done this on many projects and I really love how this turns out. And it's so easy because you're only using one item from the Dollar Tree, just the frame. Now that I have that on there and dry, I want to see how the frame looks. It looks really good. So let's just go ahead and pop this back in the frame. These Dollar Tree frames have hangers on the back, also stands. So I'm going to use a stand to actually display this on a cabinet for spring. I think that looks pretty good. Just making sure everything's perfect before I put everything together. I'm just going to pop the back on, making sure I have it going the right way and close all the staples there on the back. And look how cute this is. It was so easy to make. I really love that image. It's really fun. And all of the little bees flying around. And look how cute that Dollar Tree frame looks. I love the texture on it. Just using a little bit of paint and distressing on that can really make a big difference. And it kind of reminds me of the same color as rope, which I have used a lot for my Bee DIYs here on my channel. Okay, up next, we're going to do spring DIYs. These are all going to be spring, think birds, think flowers, that kind of thing. And these were so much fun to put together for you. I hope you enjoy. For this DIY, I wanted to make a spring fence sign complete with flowers using some of these little fence signs from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to combine two of these together with one of the long board signs, kind of the smaller version of that. So first I just need to remove the hangers here from the back. I do want this to be a hanging sign, but I don't need two sets of hangers because I'm going to have these little side by side to make a longer fence. So I am just taking those off on the back, using the Cricut weeder to get those little staples out there from the Dollar Tree and cleaning this up. I just want to do a like white picket fence with this, and I want it to go all the way across like the background of the spring sign. So that looks pretty good. I've got those cleaned up. I do want them to be spaced out as well. So I'm going to have a little gap between them, and then I'm also going to put this little board side underneath of it like that so I can add some more things to the bottom. To space it out, I'm just going to use a popsicle stick. It's about the same width as the board that connects the little palette board sign together. And so I'm just going to use scissors to cut out a couple little pieces of that, to just use hot glue here on the back, and we can glue these together, making a longer fence sign. I want to use some of those wooden flowers from the Dollar Tree to do a really fun flower display, but I don't want to cover up the entire fence. That is why I'm adding the board side underneath of it. And there is room here under the brace where I can just glue this thinner sign on. I don't care that it has holes in it. That's all going to be covered up with my little faux garden. I want this fence just to look like a classic white picket fence. So just using a brush and some white acrylic paint, we are going to paint this. I'm not going to paint the sign below. I'm going to have it be like grassy and green. And so I guess you could paint it green, but I really couldn't see any of the original board through it. So I think it's good as is. As for the top, I did do a second coat of white just to make it really pop. And then I am going to make a new hanger here in the back, just taking some twine, knotting it, and using my staple gun. It's plenty thick here with the doubled up board here on the back of the sign. And I just do the same thing here on the other side, just making a new hanger for this project. I do want it to be a hanging little fence sign. These are the flowers that I'm going to use for the front of it. There are different kinds of these, as you can see, and I'm going to use different kinds, but for what I'm actually doing with it, I don't know if it really matters if you have different ones or not. I thought it would be fun to leave like the stem and the leaves on here and kind of replace the flower with a faux flower from the Dollar Tree. So for the leaves, I want them to be green. I'm just using acrylic leaf green paint, and I just went over them with one coat, and I do want them to have a little bit of lines and stemming and texture, so I just go over it with a paint pen. It's a little bright. I thought that the leafy green would mute it down a little bit. I do have to add some more details to that later. The first flower we're going to use is this one. It's pink with a yellow center. I wanted to do like a pink and yellow, maybe a little bit of a white theme for the flowers on this display, so I thought this would be perfect for the center. And then I can do one of the same thing on each side. If you had 3 different ones, that would be great. I just really think the colors need to kind of coordinate. Now, in case you can see any of the flower behind it, I just went ahead and painted all of them pink. You're really not going to be able to see anything, probably except for some of the very edges, but I wanted to make sure that you couldn't see just the raw wood back there. And then I just take the back off of the flower, cutting the stem off. I want this to be as flat as possible when I glue this to the wooden flower. And the stem and the flower are not connected at this point, but using hot glue, I just went ahead and attached it all together. Now, I really like this. I really like the colors. The only problem is I thought the flower was a little too big. It kind of overpowered the stem and the leaves. You couldn't really see them. So I'm just going to cut them down shorter. The petals, it was really easy to do. I just folded them in half and cut a curved pattern to give me that great shape that they had before. And this way, it's just going to make it a little bit smaller. The other flowers that I chose for the other 2 were the right scale. So this was the only one that I had to do this to, but I think it really made a difference to kind of scale that down a little bit. These are the flowers that I want to use for each side. These are like pink and yellow and kind of ivory color. I'm going to choose 2 of them that are about the same size, and just like before, I'm going to peel the back off of them. I don't normally do that because it does make the flower fall apart, but I needed these to be super flat. So I attach it with hot glue here, trying to make sure the center is kind of bunched up on these, and some extra hot glue to help keep the flower together. I think that one looks pretty good. I like the fact that the colors are the same, but the flowers look completely different for a little variety for this spring sign. And then I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side, take it apart, cut the stem off, and attach it with hot glue. I did think about using some of the leaves from the plants from the Dollar Tree to replace that part too, but that would really cover up everything that was on these little wooden flowers, and I don't want to do that. I just like that addition of the flowers, I think. So I'm just going to use hot glue and attach our center flower right here in the middle, gluing it to the fence, not really to that bottom sign part. And then do the left flower here. I'm going to line them up pretty even all the way across, and that way the fence can peek out above them and I still have room to decorate underneath. For the grass, I'm just using some reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. You could also use that faux Easter grass they have right now at Dollar Tree Plus. That would be really cute too. And I kind of went back and forth about which one I should use. I'm not sure. I like it like this, but I think it would look really good with the grass as well. So just using one bunch at a time, I'm trying to make sure that it's not super thick. I don't want to waste any of the moss. I just want a thin coat all over to make it look like it's greenery. Not necessarily just moss, but just green and filling it up like it is in a garden. And I go around all of the flowers just like that. Now I want to make sure you don't see this bare sign here at the bottom. So I did use some smaller pieces and go in and make sure everything's covered there as well. I think it's looking really cute so far. I'm going to give it a quick trim. And I want to add a little bit more spring to the sign. I know it's already got a lot, but I think we can add some more. The first thing I noticed, I didn't really like the green color of paint pen that I used for the lines. So I'm just using a little bit more of that leaf green paint, an acrylic, and a baby wipe to kind of wipe off the excess to see if I could get a little bit of it to come through. But again, keeping that leafy texture and less of the Christmas green color. I was only so successful with that. I do have to add some more details. And then I wanted to add some little spring bugs to our garden. I have some of the red ladybugs, the wooden ladybugs from Dollar Tree, and I added one there to the fence. And I think I'll add another one maybe over here on a leaf. I want to add like ladybugs and bees and different things that you would see in spring. So this is the bee I'm going to use. It's one of the wired bees off of this little chime that I got at the Dollar Tree. It's great because it has the wire attached to it to make it look like the bee is flying. I just use a pair of pliers and take that off the little wind chime. It's a super cute little bee. And I can have that like maybe come out of the fence just like that. I wrap the wire around the back and just using my staple gun to attach it. It's the easiest way. And that looks pretty good. And you can kind of mold it the way that you want it, have it flying out there like it's getting ready to land on a flower. Then for the base, I thought I would add a few more flowers, but this time some smaller flowers. So I picked up these little wildflowers from the Dollar Tree in pink and white, and they come apart pretty easily. You can just pull the flower off, and I'm just going to hot glue that and push it down into the reindeer moss. I noticed the pink stem was a little bit longer, so I did trim them a little bit before I glued them to make sure I could get them nice and close. And then these flowers are like white with a little yellow center, so I thought some of those would be really cute as well. And we're gonna just glue some of those down into the moss as well. Now for the details on the green leaves. I already have everything put together, but I just used a green Sharpie and a little bit more lines here. It's a more neutral color, and I think this turned out pretty good. I did have this little ladybug in the way already. I just kind of took it off and put it back on. It has some double-sided tape on there. And then to make it not completely blend in to the green reindeer moss, I decided to go around the edges with my fine-tipped white paint pen and just do a very rugged, very tiny border just to help that pop the green against the green like that. I don't want it to all blend in. I want it to look like there's stems and leaves on each one of these flowers. Now I decided to move a few things around. I didn't really like the ladybug up on the fence, so I'm going to move it down here into the moss. And I thought I might have had too many flowers, so I'm just going to remove another flower on that side. And then I thought it'd be fun to have a little grass element too. This is from some of the greenery that we were using there, and it had a little sprig of onion grass on there. So I just cut off a couple, like 3 or 4 inches of it, and hot glue that down into the moss. For the second one, I'm gonna have to kind of thin these a little bit. I just trimmed their edges, making them skinnier, so they'll be more similar to the grass on the other side because they get wider as they go down on these. And then again, cut off about the same amount of this grass. And I'm gonna glue this down to the moss on this side. I thought it'd be fun to have at least a little bit of grass peeking out of the garden. And just another little fun detail, I think that this sign really screams spring. It's so bright and colorful. It's not super large. You could fit this just about anywhere. And look how pretty that looks. I think that using the faux flowers from the Dollar Tree is it's going to give me a way better look than anything I could have painted on those wood flowers. But I think it's really cute, and I love all the little fun touches like the ladybugs and the bee. Super fun, and I had so much fun putting this together. I hope you enjoy the spring DIY. For this spring DIY, I want to make a mini greenhouse or terrarium. I'm going to use some of the 4x6 acrylic sheets from the Dollar Tree, 2 of the wood-shaped photo frames from the Dollar Tree for the structure of the little greenhouse, 2 wood 5x7 frames, 1 for each side. You're going to want them to be the same. And then also some wood dowels from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to need 1 of those. I thought I was going to use another frame like this for the top of the greenhouse. I end up not using that one. And some of these bamboo sticks, I get those on Amazon. I have those linked in my shop. They come in handy for crafting because there's something that they don't really have at Dollar Tree. My plan is to have the 5x7 sign on its side like that, with the house-shaped shine being the front and the back. And then I can use the acrylic boards, piecing them together for the top. It's not going to be the right size, but I think I can have 2 windows on each side of the top of the little mini greenhouse. So let's get started with the 2 5x7 frames. As you can tell, everything's pretty much the same finish of wood. And if you wanted to leave these as wood, it's going to save you a lot of time. I really wanted mine to be white. And so I did have a lot of painting in this project, and it took me a little bit longer than I thought it would to complete this project. I think like maybe 2.5 hours. So it was not an easy project by any means, but I absolutely love how it turned out. Now for the frames, I'm just going to go ahead and pop the glass out so that I can paint everything. And I don't really need the back of these anymore or any of the papers that were in them, but I do need to save the glass. The great thing about these house-shaped frames from the Dollar Tree is that they have the house-shaped glass, which makes it perfect for a greenhouse. Now it's time just to remove all of the staples. I like to do that with just a pair of pliers. You want to kind of pull them straight out so they don't crack any of your wood. But these are all wood frames and they are pretty sturdy. So I just remove all of those. And I thought it would be easier to paint them now without the glass in them, so I don't have to tape off any of the glass. Otherwise, I like to paint later after I've glued everything together, but I thought it would be just easier to paint them now. So this wood is a little bit sealed on these frames, but you can still paint them. It is going to take a couple of coats. I do want that distressed look with a little bit of the wood coming through though, so I don't want full coverage. But it did still take a couple of coats just to even get that because it doesn't want to stick too well to it. So I just went over with 1 coat of white, making sure to get the edges as well. And then you can see about how much coverage that gave me. I'm going to go over here with a 2nd coat, trying to make the corners look right with the transition from like side to side, up to down here. And I wanted this to look like a little mini greenhouse, something that you could have in your house. You could actually use this as a greenhouse. I'm going to use mine for spring decor, but I love the fact that it's going to be white and beautiful, and I can really change it out for any season. Now, I do need to paint the front and the back of all of the photo frames because you're going to be able to see through it. We're going to have the glass in there, but you're going to be able to actually see through the little mini greenhouse or terrarium. So I am going to have to paint everything. So I got the 5x7s painted on the front, and now I'm going to do the same thing here with the house frames. They have a little bit of a thinner frame. I wish I had some Dollar Tree signs that had maybe a thinner frame. These are not too thick, the 5x7, so I think we can make it work. I was trying to find two for the front and two for the sides, and you definitely have to make sure they're the same size because the Dollar Tree frames can really vary. And I just went over everything here with a second coat on the houses as well. And then flip these over and paint the other side. I'm going to have the glass glued back in there, but again, it's just going to be easier to paint all of this without the glass in there. And so I do the same thing here on the back. Now this is going to be on the inside, so it definitely doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want it to be mostly white, and I'm just using white acrylic paint for this. I wasn't sure what I was going to do for the roof. I knew that the 4x6 acrylic, the 4-inch was good for the height, but the 6-inch was going to be too wide. So I'm going to try to cut those down. I've never cut the acrylic sheets from the Dollar Tree, but it was actually pretty easy to do. So now that I have all 4 frames painted, I do go over the inside with the second coat as well, just because so much of that wood was showing through. This is why the painting was labor intensive on this project, because you had to kind of paint everything. The reason I don't like to paint things in advance is because when you go to glue them together, the paint can really interfere. And so I end up sanding some of that paint off where I'm going to glue it just to try to make it a little bit more stable. Now it's time to add the glass back in these. I removed the staples. I'm just going to use hot glue to attach them. I thought it would be the perfect time to clean these first with some glass cleaner. And so I do that here on the side, and then I add hot glue all the way around the inside of the frame. I'm going to glue them from underneath the glass and also glue them from on top to try to make this stronger. I want to make sure that the glass does not fall out. And I just go ahead and pop that in there, cleaning the other side of the glass as I go. And I'm going to do the same thing here with the other one. I was so happy to find the house-shaped frames from the Dollar Tree because it really made the structure of these perfect for a little mini greenhouse. I love it. Now I'm going to go around here once I have them all in there and dried with some more hot glue, gluing it from the inside. Trying not to use so much that you can see it through the glass from the front, but enough to make that secure. And I'm going to do the same thing here for the 5x7 frame. So I just go ahead and clean the glass first, and then I'm going to hot glue them into the frames. So this is going to have real glass on the front, all of the sides of the little greenhouse, but it's going to have the acrylic on the top, which you can't really tell the difference between the glass and the acrylic when you're just looking at it. Again, I hot glue from the top and the bottom to make them super strong. I'm using hot glue on everything on this project. I don't have any hinges or any kind of fancy construction, just Gorilla Glue, hot glue, but I will show you my tricks to try to make it a little bit stronger. The first thing I do is just sand off the inside of this frame where it's going to come into contact with the 5x7 frame on the side, just to make the glue adhere a little bit better. This is one reason why I don't really like painting in advance. I probably shouldn't have painted that part, but I think that will work. I'm going to do the same thing here on the sides of the 5x7 frame, trying to get most of the paint off so that I can attach it. Now you could use wood glue for this. I was wanting to get this project done, so I definitely used hot glue on mine, but I do have a few tricks that I use to make it a little bit stronger. I start just by laying it down, using the hot glue to attach the side, lining up the bottom, and then I am going to run another bead of hot glue here on the inside. I can do that on this side where it's nice and open, but it's going to be a little bit harder to do that when I get the rest of it on here. So I do the same thing here on the other side, just using hot glue to attach it, trying to make sure that it stays fairly square here. You can kind of tell by opening it, or you can also use a little square from the Dollar Tree. I do let that set up for a few minutes to try to make it stronger. And then I'm going to go ahead and put hot glue on both sides. I'm going to have to attach this one all together at once, and then I just lay it on here. So the front of all of my frames are facing out for the houses and the ones on the side here. So I let that set up a little bit, but it's still not super strong. So I'm going to make little braces here with some of this bamboo wood. This is just a little flat bamboo wood, craft wood. You get a ton of these on Amazon. They're really inexpensive. I bought a package years ago and I'm still using them. I've used them for so many crafts. I really love them. You could also use like a popsicle stick for this. Or you could do like a dowel along the inside, but you're going to want something to kind of reinforce this. So I'm going to be very gentle with it right now until I get it braced a little bit better. I just run a bead of hot glue and I'm going right here on the seam between the two frames, gluing that to the front. Since this is like a flat wood, it gives it like a decorative trim touch. It doesn't really take away. Of course, it's a natural wood right now. I am going to paint that so it'll blend in more with the white. But I do the same thing here on all four corners. And you can't see the side frames from the front and the back. You just see that great house shape like that. Makes it a little bit longer like that. Now that I have those all on there, it's getting to be a little bit stronger. I'm not going to have a bottom or anything on this. I just want it to be like a little greenhouse that I can put over plants. I am just going to paint them white, trying to make sure to go around the edges as well to really kind of seal that up. Now for the top of the structure, I knew I wanted to use a dowel to go straight across, but I didn't know if I needed to cut up that frame for the top structure. I couldn't really find anything to fit up here, so I'm going to have to really DIY my own. I go ahead and measure the frame and I see how wide I really want this to be if I were to use two of these side by side. And I'm going to go ahead and try to cut these down. I end up using that flat bamboo wood that I got on Amazon for the trim and not needing that extra frame. So I wasn't sure how well I could cut these, but I thought I would give it a try. So just using a metal ruler, I am going to try to start the cut here with just a razor blade. I try to make sure it's square and to go straight across. This does have the wrapper on it at this point. It might be easier to cut it without the wrapper on there, but I thought at first it was handy because I could write on it to put my line on there. And I did 2 or 3 runs of the razor blade, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing here on the other side. I did remove the protective wrap here on the back, and I went over it a couple of times with my razor blade on that side as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and remove all of this. It's almost going to be a square-like piece. I was wondering if I could just pop it like that. I did go over it one more time with my razor blade, but I decided it really needed the edge to like wood or something like that. So I end up holding my piece on a piece of wood, pushing down, and it snapped with a pretty clean cut. I was impressed. So I'm going to have to do the same thing here for the other 3. I'm going to try to make them all the same size, and we can have 4 little windows on the top of the greenhouse. So I would do 2 or 3 cuts on each side, trying to make sure to get them in the same spot. And then again, just using the wood to pop that. And you know what? These were actually pretty easy to cut. I didn't really want to get my saw involved because I don't have like a plastic cutting blade on there. I didn't want to mess anything up on the acrylic or my saw. So I think this was a good way to cut them. Again, 4 little windows, just because I couldn't find any frames that would be perfect. I could have done some 5x7 frames up there like I used on the sides, but they would have overhung the edges and giving you like a little roof, which I didn't really want a roof because this is not going to be a house. I want this to look like a greenhouse. So that is all 4 of our little acrylic windows ready to go. But at this point, I don't really have any structure up here. All I have is the top of the wall and the roof line on each side. So I'm going to have to build something out here. I thought this dowel would be perfect to provide some structure here for the top. So I'm just going to cut down one of these large dowels from the Dollar Tree, just using my miter scissors. And that's going to provide a great structure here. It's almost like a toolbox handle here at the top. and connect the roof on one side of the greenhouse to the other. I just attach it with hot glue right like that. It's going to be like a little bit more of an inside structure. I'm going to use a little bit of the trim to trim that out of the end, so you probably won't be able to see that. And then I need a piece to go in between my two windows and for it to have some structure to lay on. So I'm going to cut some of that bamboo down, one for each side right here in the middle. And I'm just cutting those sideways with my miter scissors. If you cut a flat item with those, it's not going to work. You have to actually cut like a 3D object with them. I attached this piece with some hot glue. I probably should have measured this because I get mine a little off-centered. I was able to make it work, but I'm not sure why I didn't decide to measure this. I thought I was in the center. I'm a little bit off, but I kind of like the imperfect nature of it. I hot glue it to the top of the wall and to that wooden dowel on top. And now, of course, I need everything to be white to kind of blend in with the rest of our little greenhouse, our little mini greenhouse. I'm calling mine a mini greenhouse. I think it could also be called a terrarium. Do terrariums always have bottoms on them, though? I'm not sure. And I also want to paint the wood dowel. So I just use a little brush and make sure that I get in here and do the undersides of them as well, so you won't see any of that natural wood through. And again, if you were to leave yours natural wood, you really could. You're going to save a lot of time on painting, but I just think white when I think of this, so that is why I wanted everything to be white. I put hot glue along 3 edges and just put my little acrylic piece in here. I'm laying it on top of the wood pieces that I have. I'm not really gluing it to the dowel on the top. Just gluing it to the side, the bottom, and up here on the other side, and laying these side by side to fill that in. I will go back with some more of that flat bamboo to trim that out. And I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. I'm glad I chose to use the acrylic for the top because I was able to get this custom fit for the greenhouse, and it really looks just what I envisioned. Trying to use enough hot glue to keep it in place, but I don't want a lot to actually be visible here in the final project. And this is that flat bamboo trim again. I'm going to do a piece along the top of the wall and 2 pieces here like this for the top to cover that dowel area and cover the seam. And then I'll have to use one there on the other side for the roof as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do the side pieces here. I'm going to cut that down to fit inside the frame. Again, cutting that sideways, the easiest way I found to cut those. I'm going to do one here for the roof line. And I'm going to make it go all the way to the end, give me a clean look. Those pieces are going to be a little bit longer than these side pieces. I'm trying to keep them in order so I know what's what here, so I can go ahead and put these all together. I did think it would be easier to go ahead and paint these now, so I'm going to go over these with some white acrylic, and I'm going to have to paint both sides of them again because you're going to be able to see through the little mini greenhouse. So I flip those over, do a coat of white here on the back. These definitely don't need to be perfect, and I think one coat is fine. This accepts the wood pretty well. It doesn't have a lot of sealing on it. And now it's time to trim this out. I'm glad that I took these extra steps here to make it look better on the top. It looks so good. I'm so happy with this project. I've always wanted to make one like this, but I've never really thought about how I could put it together, especially with supplies from the Dollar Tree. Except for the little bamboo, everything else was from the Dollar Tree, and I think it's just so cute. For the top, I go all the way from roof to roof. That's going to reinforce it a little bit. Cover that little window hole there in between the acrylic. Again, I didn't really attach the acrylic to the top. And then I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. These two come together like at a 90-degree angle. They don't necessarily sit flush, but I think it does a good job of covering the top of it. And now I also need to trim out where the 2 different acrylic windows come together. So again, using that flat bamboo trim, it's perfect for this. I can make a little like windowsill there to frame that out. I cut a piece down for each side, just like that. And of course, I do need to paint those white as well. I had to try to get everything in there first, so I didn't have these pieces cut down yet because I wasn't sure how long they were going to need to be. So again, just one coat of white paint. And as you can see, the painting is definitely what took so long on this project, but I'm glad I chose white. I think it's really pretty. Just going to attach this with hot glue, and this is going to be the final touch for the greenhouse. It gives it that finished look, one on this side and one on the other. Now I'm also going to show you how I DIY some faux plants to go inside. I'm going to use these little terracotta pots that I got from the Dollar Tree. This is the 2-pack. They're a little bit larger than the 3-pack that they have. And I love the fact that they're terracotta. I think that really goes with the spring garden vibes of this. I'm just going to cut a little piece of foam to go down in each pot. I'm going to use some pink flowers from the Dollar Tree and some eucalyptus. But first I wanted to cover the foam up, and I'm going to do that with some of their brown floral moss. You could also use reindeer moss for this part. You're just going to want something to cover up the foam in case you can see in there. And if you're really ambitious, a real plant would definitely work in this. You could use this as a real little greenhouse. These are the flowers I chose. I think they're so pretty. I'm going to use the entire bunch to make a nice full pink flower pot that can go inside. I want to do 2 or 3 little pots inside here. I want it to be as full as possible, and I'm trying purposely to make these rather tall so you'll be able to see these through the roof of the greenhouse as well. And then for the eucalyptus, I had maybe 1.5 packages of these. I'm going to put these together for a little greenery. I didn't want it all to be flowers, and I think these are really pretty. So I'm just cutting them with my wire cutter and pushing them down into the floral foam. And these are just the right size. I'm going to go ahead and fit them in there. As you can see, it fills up the entire little mini greenhouse. But you just sit it right on top of them. And again, you could do that with some real plants as well. I'm going to display it with this cute little flower mister that I got at the Dollar Tree in pink. I'm going to fill this with some water. I think this will really add to the greenhouse vibe. And I'm also going to show you how I display it with some other plants. I think it's really fun. But again, here is our little DIY greenhouse. I absolutely love how it turned out. And let me give you a little bit of a closer look of the greenhouse using photo frames from the Dollar Tree and acrylic for the top. As you can see, I added a little tiny flower there in front for a little variety in the pot size. That is for $1 I got at the Target dollar spot, but I thought that looked really cool. And you can see a little bit here from the side how this one turned out. And this is how cute it looks with the little mister and some Target florals around. The next DIYs are more spring DIYs, but this time it's a little bit more of a birds and blooms theme. Really fun for spring. For the first one, we're going to make a spring wreath, and I'm using the Dollar Tree's wreath form, the large one. This is the 18-inch metal frame and some of their burlap roll. I'm just going to flip it over to get started, and I'm just going to start by hot gluing the burlap roll here to the back of the frame to get us started. And I am simply going to wrap the entire wreath form. Now, I know from doing large wreaths like this from the Dollar Tree that one of these burlap rolls is almost enough, but not quite. So I have a backup there. And you can use any rolled burlap that you can get. I know it can be a little hard to get at Dollar Tree. Whenever I see it, I always try to grab it though, because it's great. Look at this. And it's just the right size to wrap it. I just slightly overlap it a bit. This is how far one roll goes, so I'm going to start and stop. And luckily it stopped right on the back, so I don't have to cut anything off. I can just glue one piece of the burlap roll to the next and keep wrapping. My seam will be there on the back. So I am covering it pretty good. This is going to have multiple rolls, the burlap. I'm going to have part of the wreath visible with the burlap, but it's also going to give me a great thing to attach things to this wreath form. I just make sure to end it here on the back once I got it all covered with a little bit of hot glue back there. And we have a burlap wreath form. I love burlap as a starter for a wreath form. I don't like frilly wreath forms. I always like a little bit more of a rustic feel. For the birdhouse, I picked up this garden pick from the Dollar Tree. And so it is a pick, so I just removed the little metal piece. But you know what? It also takes the little perch. So I'm just going to replace that with a skewer. like pointy end down, and I can just cut that off. I'm using my miter scissors there. I just needed something that was about the same size because that metal was really hard to bend and break, and this would be a little bit easier. I just put some hot glue there on the pointy end and attach it back in there. Raw wood like that is fine. I love the galvanized metal for this, but you could also do this with one of the wood birdhouses from the Dollar Tree. What I like about this one is that it's skinny, so it's not going to stick out far on the wreath. And I'm also going to add some burlap to the roof just to attach some fun. So I just cut out a piece of that burlap ribbon. And a really great way to cut this is just to pull a string right where you need your burlap. And it's a great way to cut the burlap without it fraying. And it gives you a little path there to use your scissors to cut it down to size. I'm just going to attach this to the top of the birdhouse with a little bit of hot glue. And I'm going to have two sections on this wreath form. I'm going to have florals, beautiful moss and everything up on the top left. And I'm going to have a birdhouse, a bird nest, that kind of thing down in the bottom right corner like this. So I think that looks pretty good. And now it's time to start planting the greenery. I had a vision for this one. I wanted soft pink flowers. So I went to Dollar Tree and I found the softest pink flowers I could find. And then I also want lots of greenery. So I'm going to use this one right here. It's not my favorite, but I think it's going to work. And some other baby's breath. I ended up not using quite that much. And I also found some of this greenery. It's like a boxwood with like little berries, like little dots all over, and I chose the white one. Now this is some greenery that I had left over, so it's not all quite there, but some of them are still together with like two, and so I'm going to leave those together on their wire, but the individual ones I end up just removing the wire and just using those. That way I can have some smaller pieces and some larger pieces to build out this wreath. I'm going to do the same thing here with the second bundle of that. It's kind of a cheaper feeling plant, but it actually looks pretty nice, so I thought it would work well for this. I'm going to start with two of the two pieces on each side, having them meet in the middle, like right here. And since I'm attaching so many, I'm going to go ahead and zip tie this to attach it to the wreath form. But for the rest of it, I don't use zip ties just because I didn't really want to have to go back and cover all of these zip ties up. As you can see, they're pretty visible at this point, but you won't be able to see that in the end. Now, I've made a lot of wreaths on my channel, and I think this is my favorite wreath that I've ever made. It turned out so pretty. I'm going to have a terrible time taking this down when the season is over. But you know what? You could probably leave it up all summer if you wanted to. Now for the baby's breath, I'm just going to cut them in individual pieces. Really, a little goes a long way on these. I think that's going to work. And I couldn't decide if I should leave the leaves on them or take them off. I do end up taking them off because I felt like it took away from the rest of the greenery, the feel of it that I was going for. I just put those underneath that same zip tie, just using a little hot glue to tack them down to the burlap. And this is one great thing about the burlap. You can kind of poke your greenery in there. You can use hot glue to attach it. I am going to reinforce that because this is going to be on my door, so I don't want any of the stuff falling off. But for right now, I can just kind of poke it in the burlap, tack it down with some hot glue, and I'm layering. So I used some of the baby's breath, and then I'm going back in with that original greenery. And I want it to be a variety of florals on the sides, but that's when I decided I didn't really like the leaves on the baby's breath. So that's okay. They were only tacked down. I can go ahead and just pop those off and remove the leaves on this one. And I do that for all of the ones that I attached. I think 4 bundles of the baby's breath is enough. It provides a nice white. And there you can also use some of the white flowers from Dollar Tree, the little tiny white flowers. That could work as well. And then I'm just going to start tacking down the greenery. I did another layer of that fern kind, and then I also have this boxwood that also has the little white berries all over, so I think that's going to go really good with the color scheme. I wanted a lot of green and white for a nice background for those soft pink flowers that I found from the Dollar Tree. Now, if you can't find some pink flowers quite as light as mine, you could always paint them or whitewash them. They actually paint pretty well. And I am just going all over with the greenery, again, layering. Now I'm down to the individual pieces of like the fern-like plant here. And I just make sure I do it symmetrical. So if I add it to one side, I add it to the other, and I try to add it in about the same place. So another boxwood here. And I just want it to look full and lush, but only on this half of the wreath form. To reinforce it, I'm just going to use some Dollar Tree twine. It's going to blend in well with the burlap that we have on there, and it's going to be easier to work with than wire or even zip ties. So let me show you how I go about doing it. I start here at the bottom and I tie it on right here. I'm going to hide that back here in the back. And then I'm just going to simply take my roll and start wrapping this around. In between all those different layers, tying all of the greenery down. It's going to make it a lot sturdier on my front door when it is open and shut, and I won't have to worry about any of this stuff falling off. And I just simply take my time, go between each layer, and wrap this around. Now, you can still kind of see it against the burlap, but I have a plan to hide all of that and to make this part of the wreath look really full and lush. So that is half of it. As you can see, it's symmetrical on each side of the zip tie. I did the same exact thing. And again, I just want everything tied down, but I don't want any of it being tied down. I'm just tying down the stems. I want all of the greenery to be plush and out there. So that looks pretty good. I'm just going to wrap this around to the back. You can see about how many times I wrapped it and tie this off on the back. Originally, I was going to cover the entire wreath form with greenery, but I really loved how the burlap looked, and so I'm going to leave some parts of it just with burlap, but I do want lots of moss on there. So I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree reindeer moss and just start breaking it apart in pieces about the same shape that I need, and I'm going to cover any of the wreath form on this section where you can see the burlap or you can see some of the twine or even the zip tie. So basically, I'm just going to piece it together, and it's going to make it look really lush and green for spring, and it's serving another purpose because it's covering up any of the parts of the wreath that I don't want you to see. And it's very lightweight. It holds up well outdoors. For me, even here in Florida, with the hot glue and the moss, especially when you're gluing it to like a burlap surface. I did that with my mossy basket wreath that I did recently on my channel, and it has held up really well outside. And I am just going here on this side too. Every little piece that you could see any of the burlap peeking through or any of the twine or anything like that, I just patch it with a little bit of that reindeer moss. I used a whole package for this just to go in all the different areas here. And as you can see, it makes this part of the wreath look really green and finished. I absolutely love how this turned out. My favorite project is coming up though. We're not quite to it yet. For the flowers, these are the soft pink flowers that I found. I'm just taking them off of their stems and using some hot glue on the stem to glue it down into the reindeer moss and the burlap. Both of those are going to help hold that on there. No need to wire these on there or anything. I do 3 coming down the left side like this, evenly spaced out, and then I'm going to do 3 going out the other direction. And then I'm going to do 3 in a cluster where it kind of all comes together. So this is the third one for this one. And for where the 3 come together, I'm going to kind of cluster them together like 3, like a little triangle. They're all about the same size, but I just love the colors. I think this is so pretty for spring. And again, I just put these like almost in a triangular pattern. Now it's time to attach our birdhouse. We can start working on this side of the wreath form. There was really no way to tie this on. There's no holes in it, or that would be easy to attach it. And I didn't really want to drill into the metal, so I'll show you what I end up doing. I just take some twine and some more burlap. It could be any fabric, and basically I glue it to the back, and then I make a little patch here to reinforce it with the burlap and the hot glue, and that should make it a little bit stronger. And I am going to just tie this around with the burlap. Right here in this corner, I want to leave a little room because I want to make a bird's nest for this one because I had a bird theme going into this, and I definitely want a little bird on there. I do want a little bit more of the green reindeer moss coming out on the sides. I'm so glad I can find this at my stores again, very plentiful. I thought about ordering a case online, but my stores always seem to carry it, and I keep stocking up on it because I use it for all of my spring crafting, especially like my fairy gardens and stuff like that. So I do a little bit more coming out both the sides of the florals. Now it's time to make a little bird's nest. I have some Dollar Tree raffia. We're making everything from scratch on this one, even the bird. So let me show you how I end up doing it. First, I'm going to take a needle and thread. And then I realized how old I am because I could not see the hole in that needle, but we persevered. I never sew either. My mom was a seamstress, not me. And I am just going to start simply wrapping this around my hand just to see how much of the raffia I need. And I think that's going to be enough, so I just cut off the excess. I wasn't sure exactly how I could build this, but what I did ended up working really well. So I have my little bundle, and I put my hot glue directly on my silicone mat. That is the great thing about these silicone mats. You can actually use them for crafting like this. So I did a circle, and I just lay my raffia right on there, forming that circle the right size that I want, and I am going to hot glue it to itself, circling it around into a nest shape. I am going to use my needle and thread to reinforce this to keep this round shape of the little bird's nest, but I was really impressed with how easy this was to make with just Dollar Tree or raffia. If you don't have a silicone mat like this, I have the one that I use linked in my Amazon shop in the description of today's video. It's called a monster mat. It's huge. You don't have to get one this big, but I love it. It is great for crafting. I just take my needle and thread and basically sew through there. I'm going to go one in each corner here in quadrants, and basically going in and out of the center, wrapping it around the edges and tying it off. Now for the rest of the nest, I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of Spanish moss. I have been finding that at my Dollar Tree, but I have a little bit left over from other DIYs. I just glue a little bit inside my nest, and I'm also going to glue some on the bottom because I think it looks cool, and that can cover up the hot glue down there too. And we have a cute little bird's nest. It was so easy to make. Isn't that adorable? And there's other things you could have used for that too, but that is really the only material I had. Now it's time to DIY a bird. I'm just going to cut out some cardboard and cut a slit in it, and I'm also going to be using a 4-pronged fork. For this, I'm going to use some of this eyelash yarn from the Dollar Tree. I thought we could try to make a pom-pom bird with this. Now, I didn't have any yarn that was a coordinating color, and I needed something stronger than the eyelash yarn, so I used a little bit of jute twine in there. And then I just simply start wrapping this around. I put my jute twine in the slot first, and then I wrapped it about 50 times around my cardboard. I wish I'd had a little bit stronger cardboard. It wanted to cave in on me a little bit, but it still worked. And then I take my twine and I gather it together like this, making it go through the little slot there and tie it off once. And now I can pull it off. I'm also going to tie it as tight as I can and double knot this, leaving the twine on there to be able to attach this to the head of the bird. This is a little bit longer, so that's going to be the body. And one difference from a yarn pom-pom is you don't cut the loops on this. It has that eyelash fringe, and it makes it nice and fluffy already, so you don't need to cut it again. Now for the head, I want to make a smaller pom-pom. So I put my twine down the center of the fork and grab it. And again, I wrap it around 50 times. I count it just so I can kind of make sure exactly how much I put on my fork. And then I cut off it right here. And then you bring your twine through one of the middle of the fork there, and you can tie that off. Once you get it tied, you can slide it off your fork and double knot it. Now, this is what I have so far. Again, you don't have to cut the loops. It's already fluffy enough. You can fluff out your loops a little bit, but basically I want to attach the head to the body of the bird. So I just line up my matching twine here and tie this off. I double knot it. Again, I wish I had some matching yarn because I do need to cut these off so you can't see them. I don't want that brown to show through. But I thought it would be stronger to keep my bird attached than to use that eyelash yarn, which is a little bit delicate. So right now I have a tiny pom-pom and a larger pom-pom. The tiny pom-pom is the head. I'm going to shape that out a little bit. I love the fluff on this because I don't have to add feathers or anything like that. You can fluff it out to make it look like tail feathers and stuff like that. And now it just needs a beak and some eyes. For the beak, I'm using just some orange felt from the Dollar Tree, and I cut out a little rectangle. I'm going to fold that over. I want a top beak and a bottom beak, so I just cut out 2 tiny triangles, just trying them on. This bird is really small, so I'm going to make them a little bit smaller and attach them with hot glue. Now, the reason I wanted to do a bluebird for this is bluebirds really hold a special place in my heart. My mom passed away about 6 years ago, and she would always send me bluebirds. She still does on occasion. And I love seeing a bluebird. It's so funny. One day after she died, I even had a bluebird flying next to my car, next to my driver's window, like all the way up an exit ramp. It was the craziest thing. I saw them everywhere. For the eyes, I just used some of the little plastic dot stickers from the Dollar Tree that I had painted black for a previous DIY. I hot glued one on each side of the bird's head, and we have a little bluebird. I think it's so cute. I'm obsessed with it. Now it's time to attach the little nest to our wreath form. I'm doing it at an angle so it is upright enough to be able to keep the bird in there, but I'm going to need to boost it up a little bit here on the bottom, so I decided to put a little bit of extra Spanish moss underneath of that to have a little bit of a base. Then we can add our adorable little eyelash charm bluebird from the Dollar Tree. I think it turned out so cute. I hot glue him in its nest so he stays put. And then I also want a little bit more moss on this side to balance it out. So I take a little bit of the reindeer moss and I'm going to glue it underneath of the bird's nest and over on the side. And I want it to look balanced, so I'm going to do it on the other side of the birdhouse too, but not too much. I do want to leave a lot of burlap exposed on this because I think it's really pretty. And there it is, my favorite wreath I've ever done on my channel here, my spring wreath with all these beautiful florals, burlap, and a birdhouse and a cute little bird. We DIY'd everything was from the Dollar Tree on this one, and it is large. I think it's going to look great on my front door. I can't wait to hang it up. You can kind of see it takes up my entire hall tree how big this wreath is. If you're enjoying today's video, be sure to hit that like button. It always helps my videos do better. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on that bell for notifications when I post new content. For this DIY, we're going to use these new spring plates this year. Aren't they so beautiful? I picked up a dinner plate and a salad plate, and we're going to make a little tiered tray using one of their candle holders. I picked up a pink one, so I don't even have to paint it. I think it's perfect for a spring tiered tray. So I'm simply going to remove the tags from the bottom of these. I love this pattern. I think it's so pretty. You could also use this as a dessert stand, and you could even put a pedestal on the bottom of it if you want. I want mine to be a tier tray, so I'm just going to do the large plate on the bottom, the smaller plate on top, and this is going to be the perfect little tier tray for my kitchen for spring. And the fact that it's plates really kind of goes with the theme as well. The flowers are towards the outside, so you'll be able to see some of them peeking out. To attach it, I need a really strong glue. So you're going to want to use like an E6000 or a Gorilla Glue. I'm just going to go here on the outer edge where it is going to make the most contact with the plate underneath, and then a little bit of hot glue on the inner ring so I can have some short-term hold, but I don't really want to mix the two kinds of glue together. And I stick that right in the center of my dinner plate, right side up for the candle holder, and that's going to provide a great foundation for the top of the tier tray. Again, I use the Gorilla Glue here along the edges where it's going to make the most contact with the plate above. And this time I used some of the Dollar Tree double-sided tape. I thought I would probably need to stack 2 pieces, but that ended up being a little too thick because when I put my plate on there, it seemed to make contact with the double-sided tape, but not really with my Gorilla Glue. So I'm going to peel that off. I am going to use the double-sided tape. That is a great way to temporarily keep it on there, but this time I'm only going to do 1 layer and then add a little hot glue to that as well, and then sit it back on here. The Gorilla Glue is really going to help hold this together, and we have a tier tray. Wasn't that so easy? And it's so beautiful for spring. I don't want anything on the bottom. I want it to be flat so it's nice and stable. but I think it is ready to decorate. For a little bit of filler and to cover up some of the words on that top plate, I'm going to use just some reindeer moss, and I'm going to decorate the top of it first, just a few pieces here scattered around, and we can add our DIYs and finds to this. The first one's going to be a DIY. I found this great little birdhouse at the dollar spot at Target. It was only $1, but it's already painted pink. It's a little mini birdhouse, so I think it's going to be perfect. I'm going to combine it with a Dollar Tree wood slice ornament and one of their wood stems to make a standing birdhouse to give it a little bit more character. I just attached the wood stem to the wood slice with a little bit of hot glue, and I'm going to glue this right on top. Now, you could do this with the Dollar Tree birdhouses. They are a little bit larger though, and I love the pink and white stripes on the roof of this. I think it's really cute. I attach it with hot glue, and then to decorate it, I'm using a little of the reindeer moss and attaching that to the wood slice. It covers up the ornament hanger, but I don't want to cover up the entire thing. I want some of the wood showing through. So I think this piece is ready to go. Super easy. And it's nice and tall, so I can put it here on the top of my tier tray, right here in front. So cute. It goes with my bird theme today. And I'm going to do a bird theme for the top of this tier tray. And see how the flowers like slightly peek out? The next item for our spring tier tray is a little bird's nest with some eggs in it. I think I got this maybe at TJ Maxx one time, like with a 3-pack or something, but I use it for my spring decor and for Easter. I think it's perfect. You could recreate it. I showed you how to make a Dollar Tree nest. Now for the next item, I got this little bird at the Target dollar spot. It's a little blue bird. It's ceramic. It's painted. It's perfect. And that's going to go great here on the tier tray. I'm going to put it behind the bird's nest a little bit lower, but you can still see it peeking through right about there. And then for a little bit more filler, I'm going to use some of the Dollar Tree little foam flowers. So these are the light pink little foam flowers from the crafter square. I'm going to like scatter some of these around, not too much. They're pretty pink. You could also use some real flowers for that as long as they're kind of small. And maybe a little bit more moss to fill out the top tier. For the bottom tier, I wanted to do more of a gardening theme. So I'm going to scatter a little bit more of the reindeer moss down here to get us started. And the first thing I'm going to use is a little frog. A frog could be found in a garden, right? This little guy's laying down, and I love the way that they have these this year. They're painted so nice. I'm going to have him laying down here in the back of my spring tier tray, peeking out a little bit on the side. And let's get some light down here as well so you can see. The next item I found is a little pair of garden rain boots that I got at the Target dollar spot for $1. I think I got them there a couple of years ago, but they're always great for a tier tray. I'm going to put mine over on the side. The next item is just a couple of flower seeds that I got at Dollar Tree, some spring flowers. I thought that would go fun with the gardening theme down here. I'm going to use them as decor, and then later I can plant them. So I just piled them on like that. Some morning glories on top for a little pop of color. The next item we're going to use to decorate it is one of the little watering cans. This was a yardstake that I got at Dollar Tree. I just removed the metal yardstake from the bottom, and now we have a little watering can that is just the right size. I also have some of the little wood mini flower pots from the Dollar Tree, and I thought I would just scatter a couple of these on there. I'm not going to paint them or anything, but I thought it would go nice with the gardening theme down here just to kind of toss a few of these around. I think they look a little bit better in the moss. I'm going to toss a couple of them over here next to the little rain boots. And then we only have room for maybe one more thing on the bottom tier. I'm going to use these pink and white spring flowers I found from Dollar Tree. They match the pink and white stripe on the birdhouse on the top, and I think it ties it all together. I'm going to put it right here in front, and then maybe turn this little guy around so you can see it a little bit better, a little watering can. And isn't this a cute little spring tier tray for my kitchen? It was so easy to do. Really, everything was already made except for the little birdhouse. We added a little bit more fun to, and we DIY'd the tier tray. Super fun. I love birds for spring. I think it's so pretty, and those plates are gorgeous. I think they make the perfect tier tray. Now, again, you could boost it up a little bit if you were going to make yours into like maybe a cupcake tower or a food display of some kind. But I like it just like this with the one candlestick in between. It's nice and easy, and the candlestick is tall enough where I was able to decorate the bottom tier as well. Isn't that so cute? For the next DIY, I'm going to do a spring pillow using one of their new placemats with that beautiful spring pattern and one of their spring napkins. Now, since this already has a back on it, I really only need one of the placemats. What I'm going to do is take a seam ripper along one side of the placemat and just simply rip out the stitching. Then we can stuff it. But even though I think the placemat is beautiful, it's a very plain for a pillow. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to add that happy spring onto the pillow using decoupage with a fabric Mod Podge. So this turned out really well. It was so easy to make. I'm going to go ahead and rip out the entire seam just to make this a little bit easier to work with and make it more consistent on this side, but leaving the other three sides sewn. And we have a little pillowcase right now. Originally, I was going to use some HTV and my Cricut to make a message for this, and you totally could. But then I would challenge myself to try to use something from the Dollar Tree, and I think these spring napkins are so cute. The flowers are a little bit different, but I think we can make this work. I just cut out one square where it says Happy Spring, and it is a 2-ply napkin, so I'm going to go ahead and separate that. Now, normally when I decoupage, I would just use some water and do ripped edges all the way around. But since I'm adding this to fabric, I really want this to blend in. So I'm going to take my time and I am going to cut out that entire napkin so I won't have any edges at all. I'm going to be attaching it with some fabric Mod Podge, so I just slide some cardboard in between just to make sure I don't glue it shut because we want to stuff it and make this a spring pillow. Again, I took my time. I cut around every single one of these leaves on the outside, and I left the white border and stuff, on the inside where the message is and stuff like that. But I thought this would be better than to have the edges on it. I've used fabric Mod Podge before, and it works really well. Supposedly, you can even wash clothing with the fabric Mod Podge. I don't know. I'd be a little afraid to try it, but I think that this is going to work. So I just, again, take my time. I'm going to speed this way up. And I cut around every single one of these leaves. And I'm glad that I did take the extra time to do this because you have no edges whatsoever. It blends in seamlessly. The napkin is so thin, you can even see the fibers of the fabric through it. So it worked really well. Almost done cutting out around every single leaf. Now I kind of messed up a little bit here with the Mod Podge. Normally when I use this fabric Mod Podge, it's the blue kind like this. I add some to the back of whatever I'm applying to the fabric, and then I add some to the fabric too. Very thin coats because it's a very thick Mod Podge. I don't know what I was thinking though, because I really shouldn't attach it to the napkin. It's just way too thin. I tried to do a little thin coat and it started distorting the napkin, and I had spent so much time cutting that out. I was like, oh no, I don't want to run it. So I'm not going to add any more to that. I'm just going to start adding some of the fabric Mod Podge to the placemats. That's how I would encourage you to do it. Don't add any to the napkin itself. It's just too thin. But I was able to make it work. Thank goodness. I didn't want to cut that out again. I put it on there and I'm going to try to smooth this out, making sure my fingers are dry. I don't want to tear that very thin napkin. And I want to make sure all of these leaves around the little wreath here are down. And again, I had to work with mine a little bit because I distorted it a little bit by adding the glue to the napkin. Otherwise, it would go on there a little bit smoother than what I did. And I want to reinforce making sure everything is glued down. Now the flowers are, a lot different than the flowers on the placemat itself, but I think they really all go well together. There's a butterfly on there and little wreath. It says Happy Spring, and I think it's the perfect amount of like a spring message and some decor for the center of this pillow. Again, when I'm working with the fabric Mod Podge, I try to do really thin coats. And I'm just drying with my heat gun in between. I know you're supposed to let it cure for a while in between coats, but it's pretty amazing stuff. It works really well. The difference you can tell is the consistency. It is really thick Mod Podge. And I'm wondering if you could do it with regular Mod Podge as well. You might be able to, but this is specifically designed for fabric. I think that looks pretty good. I think we're ready to stuff this pillow. I'm going to go ahead and remove my cardboard. Really, none of the glue seeped through. And I'm going to go ahead and glue half my pillow together here, just making a little pocket that I can stuff with some plush. I'm out of the Dollar Tree polyfill, so what I'm going to do is take an old bed pillow that needed to be replaced anyway, and I always like to recycle the little polyfill inside of these, and so I'm just going to start tearing that apart and stuffing this. It's pretty large pillow, the placemat itself, and usually when I've made placemat pillows before, I've picked up 2 placemats. This is such an easier way to do it and cheaper because you're using the fabric on the back. So really you're only buying one thing. For $1.25 the placemat, and then I bought the napkins as well, but I only used one of them. Now that I have it stuffed, I'm going to go ahead and glue the rest of the seam. You really can't tell that this side is not sewn like the others are. I just make sure to glue it nice and straight here where I don't have any of the green fabric peeking out from behind, and that it's all sealed and no polyfill is hanging out. And there it is, our little happy spring pillow. I think it turned out really pretty. What do you guys think? I'm glad I challenged myself to use something from the Dollar Tree because I know not all of you guys do have Cricut machines. And you know what? It was probably easier. Well, maybe besides cutting around all of those leaves. But as you can see, it's completely seamless because I did it that way. I think it's so pretty. Now for the next DIY, I wanted to do a spring candle. I picked up a light blue candlestick from the Dollar Tree and one of these battery-operated spring candles. It's so pretty. Look at that. It's got ferns and flowers all over. Originally, I was going to add some small pink flowers, but there is no pink at all on that candle, so I switched it up with white, and I want to decorate the candlestick. Now, those little tiny white flowers from the Dollar Tree don't have a center when you take them off, and so what I wanted to do was to make some blue centers for the flowers using some of the little beaded stickers from the Dollar Tree. They are very shiny though, so I tried to tone mine down with a little bit of matte Mod Podge first before I started attaching them to my white flowers. I do go back and distress them later because they were still just a little too bright and shiny for me, but I love the soft blue color. I thought I could decorate the front and the sides of this. I want to do flowers and greenery on this, very similar to the candle itself. And since it's a battery-operated candle, I can really kind of add as much stuff to this as I want. You don't have to worry about anything being flammable. I just take the little white flower and attach it and then glue on my little beaded sticker right in the center, just using hot glue here for everything. I want to stagger the flowers a little bit. I end up using like an odd number on the left side to make it a little bit less symmetrical. But to start with, I did 2 towards the bottom, 2 kind of up towards the top a little bit, and scattering these around. I thought this would be a fun way to bring a little spring decor to the candlestick itself. Since the candle is really beautiful, but it is a battery-operated candle, so besides the print on there, I wanted a little bit more fun for this one. So 2 more of these. You could also use the little paper flowers that are real tiny like this. That could work as well to decorate your candlestick. And a couple more here of the blue centers to our additional flowers. Now, I think that's really pretty. I love the soft blue and white together. I think it looks really pretty with that candle holder. I thought, though, that it needed a little greenery, too. There's a lot of greenery on that candle. So I'm going to use one of these little fern-like plants from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to use one. And I want it to go around the candlestick like this, having the flowers peek out from beneath. So I just attach it with a little hot glue to my candlestick, and making sure the flowers are more on top, I'm going to wrap this around here to the back, cutting off the stem and gluing it down. I'm really glad I did that. Just the flowers themselves looked a little bit cheap, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to look more beautiful. I did remove the one flower there on the left to make it a little bit less symmetrical, and I think that's going to work. I did try to tone down the shininess of those little stickers again. I used a paint pen and a coordinating color, thinking that might tone it down a little bit. I did have to go in and distress them a little bit too. with a little bit of white paint. I would put some on there, wipe off the excess with a baby wipe, just giving it a, like almost a whitewashing to tone down that shininess, because these things were so shiny and I didn't want that to take away from the flowers. I think this looks really soft and really cute. So then you just have to pop your candle on there. Isn't that candle so pretty? I love it. This is the beautiful design that's on there. So I'm glad that I was able to incorporate the greenery and the flowers to the candlestick as well. I think this will be a fun candle, maybe for my kitchen. And the battery operated light would work really well there on my kitchen counter. Isn't that so sweet? I love it, but let me first show you how it looks lit up as well. I love it when Dollar Tree includes the battery in these things. You know, sometimes the Dollar Tree Plus has the electronics now, and they don't even include the batteries after they're charging more. So that's no good. But I think it's really sweet. I love the soft colors. I love the little touch of blue for spring as well. And I think this is really pretty. I really hope you enjoyed these spring DIYs today. I had so much fun making all of these and sharing them with you. Please let me know down in the comments below which DIY was your favorite. I always love reading all of your comments. Be sure to check out my second channel, Crafty Little Beach, if you like short little DIYs that you can watch on your phone. Now enjoy the final reveal.
Don't know how I can explain. 하루 종일 네 생각에 간절해 낯설어. 나 왜 이런 걸까? You're the cure to all my pains. 널 좋아하나 봐. 널 사랑하나 봐. 이제는 더 이상은 숨길 수 없잖아. 내일 더 안아줄 거야. 안아줄 거야. We're meant to be, you can't deny. 내일 더 다가갈 거야. 사랑해줄 거야. You're my sunshine after rain. 네가 좋아. 무지개 빈 하늘을 봐. 더 푸르른 하늘과 silver lining in the clouds. 바람결에 흔들리는 너의 향기. 햇살 같은 눈밑 작은 점 하나같이 사랑해주지 않고 못 배가. Oh baby. 널 좋아하나 봐. 널 사랑하나 봐. 이제는 더 이상은 숨길 수 없잖아. 내일 더 아껴줄 거야. 안아줄 거야. We're meant to be, you can't deny. 내일 더 다가갈 거야. 사랑해줄 거야. You're my sunshine after rain. 네가 좋아. 내일 더 아껴줄 거야. 안아줄 거야. We're meant to be, you can't deny. 내일 더 다가갈 거야. 사랑해줄 거야. You're my sunshine after rain. 네가 좋아. the shadows among the pines. So offshore, playful and free, without a care in the world. I was one rich little girl, daydreamer, kidnap me. Take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot. No mistake ever kept me late. We spent summers catching fireflies and winters on our skates. One big smile across my face. We used to dance our way to church on Sundays. Mama set the pace. Daydreamer, kidnap me. Take me back, all the way back to them days, running around in a gown and a crown, barefoot.
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of today's video. I also want to give a huge thank you to all of my YouTube members for supporting my channel. Thank you to Karen O'Haron, Melinda Elizabeth, Jamie Job, Susan Edmonds, Tracy Knight, Janae Farrington, Pamelia Wren, Donna Schreiner, I Am Mojo Jojo, Live Another Day, Maren Christensen, Adrian Brolt, Debbie Middleton, Donna Tanner, Kim Rogers, and Maria Cruz Pagan. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate each and every one of you. If you would like to become a Crafty Beach Bum member, all you have to do is hit the join button next to today's video. You're going to get early ad-free access to my content here on YouTube, a badge next to your name when you comment, and a shout out in every video. And I also want to thank Joan for buying me a coffee. If you'd like to do that, they're always linked in my description of my videos. And I would love to see what you've been making. So be sure to join our private Facebook group if you haven't. Also linked in the description. I would love to see your DIYs as well. Now, would you like even more spring crafting inspiration? Be sure to check out one of these videos right here. And until next time, happy crafting!